I'm so excited for House of the Dragon Season 3, but I don't remember anything that happened in Season 1 or Season 2, so I'm going to recap it for you. I'm going to start with Season 1, Episode 1, and kind of see how it goes and see if people actually care, or maybe all of you just have better memories than I do. But if not, I will keep going and try to get all the way through Season 2 before Season 3 comes out in June, so it's a big project, but I think I can do it. Let's get started. So, House of the Dragon is a show on HBO Max based on a section of the book Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin, which is a companion book to the Song of Ice and Fire series that gives us a history of House Targaryen and their many issues. The show is a prequel to the events of Game of Thrones, and it covers the Dance of the Dragons, aka the Targaryen Civil War. I have not finished this book. That is a disclaimer. I have gotten as far as the Dance of the Dragons, and I want to finish it, but I am super reticent to get into George R.R. Martin's books because I'm scared that he is not going to finish the main series. And my heart would not be able to handle that. I loved the Game of Thrones early seasons, and I loved House of the Dragon Season 1. Season 2, we'll talk about it later. Season 3 is coming out in June, and it's been 2 years since I've watched this show, so I want to rewatch and recap it for myself and take all of you lovely people along for the ride. So, disclaimer, I will not be discussing Fire and Blood. I will just be doing show canon. So, if you want to come in the comments about how Allison is older and this stuff, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We're talking about the show today and nothing else. So, without further ado, let's talk about Season 1 of House of the Dragon. Now, before we jump into the main story, I kind of have to give some background on how all the characters got to where they are, and when I say some background, there is a lot. The season starts with a great council held by King Jaehaerys, who was the 4th Targaryen king to sit on the Iron Throne. Jaehaerys' second son and heir to the throne, Balon, died unexpectedly after Jaehaerys' first son and heir, Aemon, also died unexpectedly, and now we have a succession crisis on our hands. Who will be the next ruler? We have so many options, but really only like 2 serious claims. It's Princess Rhaenys, who is the late Prince Aemon's only child, and Prince Viserys, who is the late Prince Balon's oldest son. Male primogeniture isn't like set in stone in Westeros, and there have been women that have been named heirs to the throne before, but there's never been like a woman on the Iron Throne ruling in her own right. So Jaehaerys decides to let all of the noble houses of Westeros decide who should be the next ruler, Princess Rhaenys or Prince Viserys. So all the lords are summoned to Harrenhal, and they all cast their votes. Rhaenys theoretically has a better claim to the throne because she was the son of the eldest son of Jaehaerys versus Viserys, who's the son of the second son of Jaehaerys. And when I say like first and second, Jaehaerys had so many kids, so it doesn't really matter. Like for our purposes, first and second. I'm not going to go check in the book to make sure that that's exactly what happens. So anyway, Rhaenys is theoretically higher up in the line of succession, but Viserys is a man, and he is also there. Unfortunately for all of Westeros, Viserys won, leading Princess Rhaenys to be known as the Queen Who Never Was. So when Jaehaerys dies, Viserys inherits a very peaceful 7 kingdoms. There hasn't been a war in Westeros for decades and decades, and I'm sure that it will stay that way forever. So that is where our main story picks up. We have King Viserys, who is married to his cousin, Aemma Arryn, and they have a daughter, Rhaenyra. Viserys also has a brother, Daemon, who is sort of a chaotic, violent, but highly skilled warrior. And then we have Princess Rhaenys and her husband, Corlys Velaryon, and they have 2 children, Laenor and Laena. I'm throwing so many names at you. I just want you to know how hard it was for me to gather all of these names. I had such a headache doing it, so you're welcome. We also have Otto Hightower, who is the hand of the king, or like the king's right hand, and then his daughter, Alicent Hightower. And Rhaenyra and Alicent are best friends. They grew up together in King's Landing, which is so cute. They love reading and spending time together and being just friends and nothing else. Do not read into it too much. So we get this beautiful shot of Rhaenyra riding her dragon, Syrax, and landing outside of the dragon pit, the pit where they keep the dragons. And who is waiting for her but Alicent? Rhaenyra tells Alicent that she should take a ride on Cyrax with her, and Alicent says absolutely not, which is very relatable to me. I would also not be getting on a dragon that is not mine if I am not a Targaryen, but again, that's just a personal opinion. So cut to Rhaenyra visiting her heavily pregnant mother, Aemma Arryn, in her chambers, and they talk about pregnancy and childbirth. Aemma has had many miscarriages and stillbirths because she's trying to produce an heir for Viserys. And Rhaenyra is like, I see what you've been through, and I don't want to ever do that. But Aemma says that for women, the childbed is their battlefield, which really gives context to Emma's feelings on her many failed pregnancies in her efforts to produce an heir. She views it as like a necessary duty, but something that's very dangerous and very painful. So this conversation will stick with Rhaenyra, but she doesn't really have time to process it because she is late to the King's small council meeting where she is cupbearer to Viserys. At the council meeting, Corlys tells the king about this alliance called the Triarchy. It's an alliance of the free cities that have laid siege to this territory called the Stepstones in an attempt to claim the land for themselves. Corlys is super worried about it, and he's worried about it affecting the Westerosi shipping ports and the local economies, but Viserys and Otto, Hand of the King, could really care less and kind of brush him off. The conversation moves to Prince Daemon because the Master of Coin, whose name is Beesbury, is complaining that Daemon, who is currently commander of the City Watch, has spent a ton of the crown's money on armor and weapons and other nonsense. And here's something you need to know about Viserys. He is ride or die for his brother. He doesn't want him to be king. Nobody does. But he loves his brother and basically tells Beesbury that he doesn't care and to shut up. Viserys is really there to talk about the tournament he's hosting in honor of the birth of his child. Because remember, Aemma Arryn is pregnant and Viserys is certain that it is a boy. I don't know why he is certain, but he is absolutely certain of it. He's especially excited about the tournament and the birth because he still doesn't have a son, which is problematic because A, his daughter can't really be queen after Rhaenys was already passed over in the Great Council, and B, literally no one wants Daemon to be king, except for me. I think he would do a good job. But nobody asked me what I think, so literally no one in Westeros wants Daemon to be king. He's arrogant, he's impulsive, he's stubborn, all historically fabulous traits in a monarch. After the council, Rhaenyra walks into the throne room where she finds said arrogant, impulsive, and stubborn man sitting on the Iron Throne. Sir, that throne does not belong to you. It's not yours. He's just being silly, though. Something that's really adorable is that Rhaenyra and Daemon speak in High Valyrian to each other, which is their ancestral language. They only speak it to each other. And again, I'm going to call it adorable because I'm going to be putting aside how bananas Daemon is. And that's really a kind word to describe his character. Yeah, so we're just going to put that aside for now. Daemon is salty about the tournament because when Rhaenyra's brother is born, he will no longer be the heir to the throne. And he is not too happy about that. Daemon gives Rhaenyra a necklace made out of Valyrian steel, so now they both have a piece of old Valyria. Daemon has his sword, Dark Sister, and now Rhaenyra has this necklace given to her by her uncle. Very, very cute if you forget that he is her uncle. Then we get to see besties, Rhaenyra and Alicent, sitting in the courtyard working on their studies together. Alicent can tell that Rhaenyra is worried and asks if it's because she's about to be overshadowed with the birth of a son. And Rhaenyra is like, no, I could not care less. I'm worried about my mother. And Alicent's like, why aren't you worried about your position? Have you not thought about this? Have you not considered the potential consequences? Blah, 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 blah. And Rhaenyra says in so many words that she does not want to be queen. She only wants to see the world on Dragonback with Alicent by her side. A totally heterosexual thing to say. Alicent is frustrated that Rhaenyra isn't being honest with her because she can tell that something bigger is going on. And Rhaenyra takes the book that Alicent is reading and tears out a page to give to her so Alicent can remember the history lesson that they were trying to study. Alicent is very shook and is like, but what about the nun who is our teacher? They call them septas. But Rhaenyra is like, F the nuns, dude, I am a princess, which fair point. So we see that Rhaenyra is a little rebellious and Alicent is a lot more straight-laced, but they are best friends and I'm sure that they will stay best friends forever and ever and ever. But as the hour grows late, we're jumping back to Viserys, who has cuts from sitting on the Iron Throne. That is not surprising to me. That chair looks so effing scary. They've gotten infected, so he's getting treatment for them before he goes to visit his pregnant wife. Again, Viserys is like, wow, I'm so excited to have a son. And Emma's like, I love that you're so certain. Love that for you. But just so you know, boy or girl, success or no success, I am done. This is my last time having a kid for you. I can't do it again. She basically was like, I can't mourn any more children. Meanwhile, Daemon has given the City Watch gold cloaks and is wreaking havoc on King's Landing. He is punishing criminals, but in the most chaotic way possible. He's castrating perverts. He's murdering people on the spot. He's riding through the city with a love for violence, not a care in the world. This will come back to bite him the next morning at the small council meeting because Otto Hightower is pissed about the whole vigilante mask murder thing Daemon did with the gold cloaks. But Daemon is like, brother, what you don't understand is I did this for you. King's Landing has so much crime that I had to rampage through the streets. Corlys is like, he kind of has a point, and the small folk should fear the City Watch. The small folk is what they call the peasants, people like you or I. And Otto is like, okay, well maybe you should spend a little less time on murder and a little more time with your wife. This is the first time we hear that Daemon has a wife, and we're like, whoa, what, wife? And Daemon is like, no, I hate that lady. She sucks. And Otto says, don't talk about your wife that way. And Daemon says, well, if you like her so much, why don't I give her to you as a replacement for your dead wife? Which really makes Otto even more upset. Viserys cuts in and is like, everybody chill out, calm down. Daemon, my best brother in the world, that's Pookie. Could you please police the city without murdering and castrating? Thank you so much. Then Daemon runs off to a brothel to hang with his mistress, Missaria, and complains that no one sees how hard he works and what a good boy he is for his brother. And Missaria is like, yes, you are the best boy, and I'm sure that your brother sees that. Thank you for the money. The next day is the heir tournament. Emma is in labor, and Viserys is watching a bunch of knights try to knock each other off of their horses, like the supportive husband that he is. Alicent and Rhaenyra are there, and they're both crushing on this up-and-comer, Sir Criston Cole. Prince Daemon is competing and causing trouble, as he always is, and he comes up to Alicent at her little booth with Rhaenyra and asks her to grant him favor in the tourney, which is just her little handkerchief. And she does this, but that upsets her father. Eventually, though, Viserys is summoned to the birth chamber because there's been a complication. The kid is turned the wrong way, he's in breach, and the solution that the maesters suggest is to perform a C-section on Emma, which will definitely kill her in order to save what could be the next king. And Viserys, who is my biggest op, when I see you, Viserys Targaryen, you will pay for what you are about to do. Viserys agrees, so he walks to his wife's bedside, tells her everything is going to be okay, and has the maesters hold her down and cut the baby out of her while she screams for him to stop, pleading for her husband to help her, to save her, to do something. Y'all, when I say this is one of the most disturbing scenes ever put to television, ugh, the actress Sean Brooke is giving such an incredible, visceral performance, and it is, geez, it's so upsetting. She is begging for his help, but he has decided that the baby is more important than his wife, and she bleeds out, scared and in pain, with the realization that her husband is the one who ordered this done to her. All of this is being intercut with the joust between Sir Criston and Daemon, emphasizing to the audience these two very different kinds of battle. Criston knocks Daemon off his horse, which makes Daemon throw a temper tantrum and demand his sword in order to settle this in melee combat. In a shock twist to everyone, Kristen Cole wins! Daemon storms off like the little baby he is, and Kristen goes up to Rhaenyra to ask for her favor in the tourney, which she grants him. Meanwhile, Viserys is sobbing over his wife's dead body, but hey, at least he has a son now, and he's named it Balon after his father. Oh, what? Oh, the child dies immediately after birth? All of that was for nothing? Okay. Viserys, when I see you. We cut to a few days later after the funeral for Emma and baby Balon. You can tell that the weight of the grief and the guilt is very heavy on Viserys. He is absolutely beside himself, and good. It's what he deserves. So Rhaenyra is beside Daemon and says that she hopes her father finally found happiness in the few hours that Balon was alive. But Daemon tells her that she needs to be there for her father and support him even more during this difficult time, when again, it's his fault. Whatever. I'm going to be so mad at this for the rest of the season. I'm going to be so mad at him. I never forgive him for this. I love the actor's performance as Viserys. Put his name right here. I don't remember his name. I'm so sorry. Patty something. Anyway, he does a great job, but I hate Viserys. In Targaryen customs, the shrouds are supposed to be burned by dragon fire, but Viserys cannot bring himself to give the command. So Rhaenyra, who is again still a child, still mourning her mother, manages to choke out Dracarys, setting the pyres aflame. Gone forever. Viserys is barely functional, but unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're like me and think he deserves to suffer, he is still a king. So he has to go do king things. He's at the small council and they're talking about succession. Otto, who has no idea that Daemon is listening in from the shadows, a very Daemon thing to do, says that Daemon cannot be king under any circumstances. It would be a disaster, and they need a new heir to be named officially to make sure that Daemon will never sit on the Iron Throne. And he's really going hard for this. Otto is like, Daemon might even kill you, sire, to seize the throne. And Viserys, who is again ride or die for his baby brother, is like, screw you, my brother would never do that. Otto is like, well, you could name Rhaenyra as your heir. But Viserys doesn't want to choose between his brother and his daughter, and he tells Otto as much. So Corlys pipes up and is like, well, hey, what about my wife as your heir, the queen who never was? We already have a son, so it'd just be like one girl and then a boy for sure. And everyone is like, Corlys, shut up. Viserys is mad to even be there so soon after he killed his wife, so he walks out. Then we cut to Otto's chambers, where Alicent is there to visit her dad. Otto, professional schemer, is like, how's Rhaenyra? Oh, so sad. You know, you should go offer your condolences to the king. Go visit him. It'd be so nice. Go visit him in his chambers, bring him a gift, and wear one of your mother's dresses. Alicent is very nervous about this. Like, she's not stupid. She kind of understands what's up, but she also has very little power. She kind of just has to do what her dad says. She also loves her father and doesn't really want to believe the worst in him, so she gets all dressed up. She goes to the king's chambers. She gives him a book as a gift, and they have a nice conversation where she offers her sympathies. And while that sweet conversation is happening, Daemon is hosting an orgy for the men of the City Watch in honor of his late nephew. Daemon, we didn't think this through. Was he grieving in his own way, or was he celebrating because he is the heir again? We'll never know. But it doesn't matter. Otto's spies report the latter, and Otto tells Viserys that Daemon was mocking the death of his son. Viserys is pissed and summons his brother to yell at him and ask if it's true. And Daemon is like, well, have you considered my feelings? Have you thought about how sad it makes me that you're always sending me away? And that you've been king for 10 years and never asked me, your heir, to be the hand of the king. Otto sucks at the job and is only looking out for himself, whereas I would protect you. We're family. And Viserys is like, protect me from what? And Daemon says, smart Daemon says, yourself. You're weak, and the small council knows it. This does not go over well with Viserys, who says, well, I'm going to publicly name a new heir. Daemon's like, I'm your heir. And Viserys says, not anymore! Go home to your dumb wife in the Vale. I don't want to see your face at court. So Daemon is kind of right that he keeps getting sent away, but also I can't really blame Viserys because Daemon is a very chaotic and abrasive presence at King's Landing. So Viserys summons Rhaenyra. They're in like the shrine grave room. They're in the room that has the bones of Balerion the Black Dread, who is the only dragon that survived old Valyria. He's the biggest dragon ever seen in Westeros. Viserys was his last rider before he died. So it's a really cool shot. Like you're looking at this giant dragon skeleton and then Rhaenyra and Viserys. Rhaenyra is confused because they have not spoken since the funeral, and Viserys apologizes. He apologizes for relentlessly chasing a male heir when he had the perfect heir right in front of him. To prove how much he believes in her as an heir, he tells her the secret that has been passed down through the Targaryen kings, the Song of Ice and Fire, Aegon the Conqueror's dream that foretold the end of men. His conquest was not solely motivated by greed or arrogance, but by this prophetic dream that stated a great threat would come to Westeros and the world at large, and the only way to fight against this great evil was for men to be united and led by a Targaryen ruler who would keep the realm together to be ready for this threat when it comes. I wonder what that's about. Anyway, cut to the throne room for the last scene in the episode. Rhaenyra enters wearing this gorgeous costume. I love it. And all the noble houses of Westeros bow before her and swear fealty to her as the official heir to the Iron Throne. Daemon is absent from the ceremony and flies off on his dragon Caraxes with his new mistress Mysaria. I don't think he's going to the Vale to see his wife. Rhaenyra will be the next ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Definitely, I am sure that nothing will go wrong. Episode 2 picks up 6 months later. The episode opens with screams of pain as wounded soldiers are being eaten alive by crabs. Yay! We will come back to that. Viserys is at the small council with Rhaenyra as his cupbearer because one of the Kingsguard has died in his sleep and they need a new knight to serve in the Kingsguard. There are 7 Kingsguard at any given time, so they will be bringing in some of the best knights in Westeros and bestowing this honor on one of them. Corlys storms into the small council because more ships have been lost in this skirmish with the Triarchy over the Stepstones. The Triarchy has now this pirate prince who's leading the attacks, and he's called the Crab Feeder because he nails his enemies to posts on the beach and leaves them to be eaten alive by crabs. Truly one of the worst ways to go. Corlys says they should stop squabbling over court nonsense when ships are being lost and shipping lanes are being disrupted, but Otto says chill. We'll compensate you for your ships and give a little something to the families of the men. But Corlys does not want compensation. He wants to seize the Stepstones' territory by force and kill the Crab Feeder. Viserys says he's not prepared to start a war with the Free Cities, and Beesbury, Master of Coin, agrees and says the losses would be incalculable. Corlys gets all up in Beesbury's face and says, well, no wonder the Crab Feeder is comfortable making enemies out of us. We have a bunch of people on this council with no backbone. Prince Daemon has seized Dragonstone and fortified it with his own personal army of gold cloaks, and the crown has done nothing about it. And Otto says, whoa, be careful. Just because you're on the king's council does not make you equal to the king. Watch your mouth. Viserys, ever the peacemaker, is like, listen, Corlys, I've sent envoys to the Free Cities to see if we can resolve this diplomatically, and there are ships and men at the ready if this goes wrong. All will be well. Rhaenyra, who's been taking in all of this information, pipes up and is like, Dad, you have dragon riders. Send us. It's checkmate. And the vibe of the room completely shifts. Clearly, the worst thing that can happen in this room is a woman with an opinion. Viserys tries to shut her down, saying it wouldn't be that simple, but Rhaenyra holds her ground, saying it would be a show of force. Corlys is like, well, at least she has a plan, which upsets Viserys and Otto. Otto basically says in so many words, sire, your majesty, this woman is too opinionated. We need to get her out of this meeting. And Viserys has the Lord Commander take her to choose the new Kingsguard because this guard will be her protector. Now, if I were Viserys and I named my daughter as my heir, I would not be kicking her out of my council meetings just because my feelings were hurt, but that's just me. Cut to Rhaenyra in the courtyard, choosing a new Kingsguard. Otto is there, Rhaenys is there, the Lord Commander, who, by the way, his name is Sir Harold Westerling. He becomes sort of important later. He's there too. Otto and Sir Harold want her to choose someone from one of the great houses, which could strengthen alliances for the crown, but Rhaenyra points out that these are all tourney knights. They have never been in battle. The only one who has is Sir Criston Cole. So despite protests, she chooses him to be the new Kingsguard, and you can tell that Otto is already sick of having to defer to Rhaenyra's judgment and rank. Those gears are turning in that little scheming head of his. Viserys' special interest is building a scale model of Old Valyria, which is where the Targaryens hail from, the Velaryons too. So he's telling Alicent all about it while she looks on so impressed. The Valyrian freehold was destroyed hundreds of years ago in the Doom, which if you don't know what that is, it was basically a massive series of volcanic eruptions that killed all of the Valyrians and the dragons except the Targaryens because they had already moved to Dragonstone. Viserys drops one of his models and Alicent picks it up and they touch hands in a very rom-com way, which is gross because she's a child and he's very old. So Viserys changes the subject and asks her how Rhaenyra is because she won't really speak with Viserys anymore. And Alicent just says that it takes time, like it did for Alicent when she lost her own mother. Alicent suggests to Viserys that he should seek Rhaenyra out, and Viserys says, but have you considered? Teenage girls are terrifying. Alicent tells him that if he reached out, Rhaenyra would probably be receptive, because that's her dad. It's at this point that Viserys asks Alicent if she's told Rhaenyra about their little talks, because Rhaenyra wouldn't understand. Alicent says, no, of course not, this is just between us. Cut to Alicent and Rhaenyra hanging out, and you can tell that their relationship is already shifting from the very joyful, easy one we see in episode 1. Both of these girls are more serious and world-weary since we last saw them 6 months ago. Rhaenyra is worried about her father remarrying in an attempt to birth a male heir, and Alicent is like, even if he does, your father loves you, and he chose you to be heir. But Rhaenyra obviously doesn't see it that way. She's watched her father for years chase after a male heir, and it killed her mom. Rhaenyra says to Alicent that he didn't choose her, he was punishing his brother Daemon. They pray together in the sept, and they're both just so sad. Rhaenyra confesses to Alicent that she wishes her father would see her as more than a little girl, his daughter, and see her as more of an equal, as an heir. And Alicent tells her that she should reach out to him. Benevolent manipulator, Miss Alicent Hightower. Cut to Viserys in the courtyard. He has summoned Rhaenys and Corlys to reassure them, despite what happened at the council, that he still values their support, and Corlys apologizes for causing offense. Viserys says that it's his duty to avoid war at all costs, but Corlys says, listen, with all due respect, the crown looks weak as hell right now. The Triarchy has established a colony in our territory, your brother has claimed the ancestral Targaryen seat at Dragonstone, and worst of all, there's a girl who's the heir to the Iron Throne. Viserys is like, okay, what would you do about all of this? Corlys says, I'm so glad you asked. I would have our families be joined. You should marry Laena, our daughter. Age check. And again, Laena looks like this. Viserys looks like this. Just keep that in mind. While Viserys chews on that idea, he is chewing dinner with Rhaenyra. Sorry, that wasn't funny. It seems like this is maybe the first dinner they've taken together since Emma died, because Rhaenyra says to Viserys that they've barely spoken since then. Viserys regrets that and says they should be able to speak to one another freely. Rhaenyra says he can say whatever he wants. because he is the king. There's many awkward pauses at this dinner. Rhaenyra also apologizes for her misstep at the council, but Viserys tells her it's okay. She's young. She'll learn. Cut 2. Maggots eating the infected flesh of Viserys' finger because his ailments from sitting on the Iron Throne have spread. They've gotten worse. Otto is there. The Grand Maester Melos. The Grand Maester Melos is there, and Viserys tells him about Corlys offering Laena's hand in marriage. The Maester says, good idea, to be honest. You should do it. But Otto doesn't really say anything either way, and we know it's because he's scheming. The next day, Viserys and Laena, who looks literally 7 years old, I think she's 12, she looks 7, walking through the courtyard, and Viserys is uncomfortable. Laena asks him about what it was like to be Balerion the Black Dread's last rider, and then asks him if he knows where Vhagar, the second largest dragon ever to be seen in Westeros, has made her nest. A little bit of foreshadowing. She then says to him that she would be proud to marry him to join their houses. She would bear him many children, and her mother also said that she wouldn't have to bed him until she turned 14. Viserys is like, wow, thank you for all of that, you small child. He is really weirded out by it. It's a very uncomfortable scene. Rhaenyra sees them walking in the courtyard, and she knows what's up. Rhaenys is there and is like, sucks, doesn't it? Knowing that you'll be replaced. Rhaenyra is like, don't try to piss me off, it won't work. And Rhaenys is like, I'm not trying to upset you, I'm trying to warn you. Your dad will take a wife, have more children, probably a son in the mix, and when your father dies, that son will become king. The men of the realm already had a chance to choose a queen, and they denied it. Rhaenyra says, actually, they didn't deny a queen, they just denied you, Mrs. Queen who never was. They kneeled for me. And Rhaenys is like, don't be stupid. Men would sooner put the realm to torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne. And your dad isn't stupid. He knows that. Really reminding Rhaenyra of her lack of power and agency, even though she is the heir to the throne. Not necessarily in the kindest way, but at this point, Rhaenys is really the only one willing to tell Rhaenyra the truth. Later that night, Viserys and Alicent are having dinner together, and Viserys can't help but bring up the idea of marrying Laena, and says he barely even knows her, and she's so young. Meanwhile, Alicent, age 15, is sitting across the table like, well, I'm sure she'll grow to care for you, just like I do. Alicent, shut up! Thankfully, Otto comes in and interrupts because there's an emergency small council meeting. The emergency is Daemon has sent a wedding invitation to Viserys. He intends to take a second wife in his mistress Mysaria because she is pregnant with his child. That's not even really the emergency. It's not good. But the bigger problem is that he has stolen the dragon egg that Rhaenyra had picked for her late brother, Balon. Viserys wasn't that angry about the polygamy and raising the army of gold cloaks, but he is very, very angry about this and wants to go to Dragonstone himself. But Otto says it's too dangerous and that he will go and that he is taking Sir Criston and Sir Harold and a bunch of other guys who don't matter. As Alicent gets Otto ready for his journey, he tells her how pretty she is, pokes at her insecurities, and asks her if she will go see the king tonight. She says, if you wish it. And we already know he wishes it. Now, everyone's at Dragonstone. On one side, Otto, Sir Criston, Sir Harold, and on the other, Daemon and Mysaria and his gold cloaks. Otto is like, dude, disband the gold cloaks, give back the egg, banish your mistress, and relinquish Dragonstone. Daemon says no! And when Otto threatens Mysaria, Daemon draws Dark Sister and his scary-ass dragon Caraxes, who, by the way, they call the Bloodworm, appears, and despite Otto having the authority of the crown, Daemon has a dragon, and that wins every time. But who appears on her own dragon? It's Rhaenyra, who dismounts and approaches Daemon. She is here against her father's orders, and she calls his bluff. She says, you want to be the heir so bad? You want to be Prince of Dragonstone? Do it. Kill me now and get it over with. And guess what? Daemon can't. He loves his niece in more ways than one. He returns Balon's egg to Rhaenyra and walks back into her castle with Miss Arya. Miss Arya, who's, by the way, very upset with Daemon because this was the first time she was hearing about them getting married and her being pregnant. So this was really just Daemon throwing a massive temper tantrum, but whatever. Back in King's Landing at the Red Keep, Viserys is mad at Rhaenyra for disobeying him, but on the other hand, she solved the problem and no one died, so we'll call it a win. And finally, he acknowledges the dragon in the room. He needs to remarry. He doesn't want to. He still loves Emma. He won't replace Rhaenyra as heir, but the realm needs a spare. Rhaenyra is sad, but she gives her father her blessing. She understands. And, oh god, she is going to regret that. Viserys brings the small council together, Rhaenyra included, to tell them all that he is getting married. To who? Oh, what? To Alicent? Shock, awe, horror. Corlys and Rhaenyra storm out, both of them humiliated and insulted. Corlys storms all the way back to his territory, Driftmark, bitching and moaning. Remember, they are also of Old Valyria, they just weren't a dragon-riding family. Instead, they made their fortune out on the seas. How do you think House Velaryon became the richest house in Westeros? Corlys did 9 different voyages, making money the whole way. Knock knock, it's Daemon at Driftmark. Corlys cuts right to the chase and says, listen, your dumb brother insulted both of us. And Daemon says, don't call my brother dumb. I'm only allowed to do that. That's a direct quote. Corlys, who sees a need to regain respect at court and also stick it to Viserys, has a proposal. Between your dragon and gold cloaks and my vast wealth and fleets of ships, we can take care of that little problem and the Stepstones ourselves. And Daemon smiles. In episode 3, called Second of His Name, we are flashing forward 3 years. Alicent is married to Viserys and they have a son named Aegon who's about to turn 2 and another on the way. Over in the Stepstones, the war that Daemon and Corlys started is not going well. The Triarchy is employing some guerrilla warfare and just picking off their men, slowly, violently, then retreating back into caves, which makes it really hard for Daemon's dragon to be of much use. Rhaenyra is still heir, Otto is still hand, and Rhaenyra and Alicent are pretty estranged. And with that, let's get started! All of court is fussing over the new baby Aegon, and Otto is standing in the back with his brother like the evil royal vizier that he is, plotting and scheming to make Viserys name his grandson heir over Rhaenyra. A Lannister dude, I will Google his name when it becomes important. Rushes in to tell Viserys that there's an urgent message from the Stepstones. Like I said, it's not going well over there. And Lannister is like, if there were ever a time for the crown to intervene, it would be now. Insert puppy dog eyes, but Viserys turns him away. Because it's Aegon's birthday and he can't find Rhaenyra. She's in the courtyard reading. Alicent approaches and tells her that the king is looking for her and she should go inside. Rhaenyra says, truly? The king commands it? Right away, your grace. And Alicent is like, girl, it does not have to be this way. But Rhaenyra pays no heed. Viserys, Rhaenyra, Alicent, and baby Aegon are all sharing a carriage. Viserys reminds Rhaenyra that she will have children of her own sooner rather than later, and Alicent's like, yeah, childbirth was not that bad, which she meant to be reassuring, but Rhaenyra takes it as an insult to her dead mother. Viserys tells Rhaenyra to join him in the hunt, and she's like, why? And Viserys is like, you're literally the princess, you have duties and responsibilities, and she's like, how could I forget when you keep reminding me? Classic teenage Targaryen argument. But Rhaenyra is surrounded by sycophants, schemers, and the other Lannister, who I just now remembered is twins with the other Lannister. What are their names? Jason and Tyland! Tyland was the one from earlier. Jason is the one schmoozing Rhaenyra in the royal tent, while everyone around her keeps hinting that Aegon will be named heir and she will be married off. I'm just saying, I understand why she runs off. People are comparing her baby brother to Aegon the Conqueror and trying to catch a white stag as a symbol of his divine right. I would steal a horse too. Sir Criston Cole goes after her and is like, girl, what was all that? And she blurts out these thoughts that she can't share with anyone else, that she's going to be replaced, that she was only ever named heir to make her a more attractive wife to Jason Lannister. And Criston asks, you want me to kill him? which does actually lighten the mood. They make camp for the night at Rhaenyra's insistence. She learns more about Criston, and she yearns for a life of freedom like the Poors have. He tells her that literally almost everyone wishes to be in her position, and she says they only want it because they don't know what it's like. She has no power. But he reminds her that she's the one who named him to the Kingsguard, the highest station anyone in his family has ever received. He owes everything to her. She's not powerless. Cut back to the royal tent, and Jason Lannister is trying to appeal to Viserys to give him Rhaenyra as his wife. Viserys is clearly not into it, but Jason is like, listen, we're rich. Rhaenyra can be my wife, and it's a good reward for her loss in station. And Viserys says, what loss in station? Jason says that he and others just expected that Aegon would be named heir. But as far as Viserys is concerned, Rhaenyra is his heir. And is Jason questioning the king's judgment? Is there rebellion to report? Jason is perturbed by this and is like, almost as perturbed as I am that there's a Jason in the Game of Thrones universe. Viserys asks Otto what he thinks of Jason's proposal, and Otto reminds him that he's king. He can tell Rhaenyra to do whatever he wants. He can command it. But Viserys doesn't want to command her. He genuinely wants her to be happy. Otto says, well, you could always avoid the issue entirely and marry Rhaenyra to Aegon. And Viserys is like, Aegon? My 2-year-old son to my 17-year-old daughter? Please shut up now. I am done talking politics. But politics are not done with him, because another lord on the small council, Lionel Strong, asks Viserys if he wants his opinion. Viserys says, let me guess. You think that your son, Sir Harwin, the strongest knight in all the land, should marry Rhaenyra? And Lionel's like, no, I'm being serious. I think you should marry Rhaenys and Corlys's son, Laenor. It would smooth over the offense of you marrying Alicent instead of Laena, and Rhaenyra would marry heir to the largest fortune in Westeros. Of course, if Laenor survives the battle in the Stepstones. Viserys has much to think about as he stumbles off drunk to the bonfire while Alicent pleads for him to go to bed. He tells her about a vision, or a dragon dream, if you know what that is, of having a son who wears the conqueror's crown. He used to believe that it was a prophecy, but his obsession with making it come true killed Emma, and he thought that naming Rhaenyra heir would assuage his guilt and set things right, but he never imagined remarrying or having a son. Poor Alicent, I know she has to listen to this man whine 24/7. Rhaenyra and a reluctant Sir Criston set up camp in the woods. Rhaenyra asks Criston if he thinks the realm will ever let her be queen, and he says they won't have a choice. A boar attacks them, Criston stabs it, Rhaenyra stabs it many, many times, gets blood everywhere. And in the morning, Viserys' men haven't caught the white stag, so they bring him a regular one. Viserys fails to kill it on the first try, a symbol of his growing weakness in both body and mind. On the way back to camp, the white stag appears to Rhaenyra and Sir Criston. Criston starts to draw his sword, but she says no. She wants it to be free. They arrive back at camp, and what a sight. The princess, covered in blood, trailing the dead boar on the horse behind her. Everyone is staring. Otto, Viserys, Jason, baby Aegon, and the strongest knight in the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Harwin Strong. Cut to Alicent in her chambers, back in the Red Keep, and Otto visits her for some light small talk, and to tell her that if she doesn't betray her friend and scheme to get her own son on the throne, the entire continent will fall to war, and it's her fault! Jeez! Alicent wants to be loyal to Rhaenyra, but Otto is steadfast. Aegon will be king, whether Viserys wants him to be or not, so Alicent needs to make sure Viserys sees sense. So Alicent visits Viserys and they discuss two things. One, Rhaenyra's willingness to get married, and two, Corlys's brother, Vaemon's request to the king for help in the Stepstones. Viserys says he'll look weak if he aids them in a war that he didn't approve of, while Alicent argues that he'll just look like a man who loves his brother. And is it better for the realm if the crab feeder dies or lives? Viserys summons Rhaenyra to tell her that he has decided to send aid to Daemon and Corlys in the Stepstones and asks if she agrees. She says, Well, it doesn't matter what I think, you're just gonna marry me off anyway. Viserys is like, girl, I am trying to help you. Why won't you let me help you? And she says, because you have always wanted a son, and now you have one, and you're going to replace me as heir with Alicent's son, and now these men of the realm are circling like vultures trying to get my hand in marriage. But again, Viserys is certain of his choice, and he affirms to her that she is his heir, but she has to get married to forge alliances, to gain advantages, to shore up her claim to the throne. And Rhaenyra says, but if this was all for political advantage, then you would have married Laena. And there it is, the hurt that really never goes away for Rhaenyra, that she was lied to by both her father and her best friend right after her mom died. Viserys says that's true, but my point still stands. You need to marry and have kids to strengthen your position. I'll even let you decide who it is. As she leaves, he swears to her on Emma's memory that he will never supplant her. God, it's like watching an 8-hour car crash. Cut to the Stepstones. I have to be honest, guys. This subplot was pretty boring to me, so we are going to speed through it. Laenor is now older and a warrior and a dragon rider in his own right. Corlys and Vaemond are there. Daemon and his dragon are there. Vaemond hates Daemon. Vaemond is just kind of a hater to his core, and it will eventually be his downfall. He has this one line where he's like, "My lord, if you do not seize control of this war, the crabs will dine on all of us." That's like word for word what he says. It was really funny. It took me out of it a little bit. It sounded very silly. Anyway, Daemon gets word that the king is sending aid, which makes everyone happy, but Daemon, who rows out by himself to the crab feeder and pretends to surrender before killing the crab feeder in like a 30v1 extravaganza. He almost dies, but he doesn't, and then the king's reinforcements arrive, and Laenor and his dragon handle the rest. I do have to admit, this battle scene rocks. The dragons, the fight choreo, Daemon covered in blood, it was all chef's kiss. And that was episode 3. Episode 4, called King of the Narrow Sea, begins with Rhaenyra holding court as a long line of bachelors, varying degrees of eligibility, vie for her hand. It's been a year since the events of episode 3. She's in Storm's End right now, and she is sick of this. One man is older than her father, one boy is literally 12, and she has no problem saying how inappropriate it is for these lords to be putting themselves forward as contenders for her hand. Lest we forget, Rhaenyra is the best match a man can make in Westeros. Heir to the throne, the realm's delight. Her advisors are trying to steer her towards the most advantageous match, but hold on, it's the 12-year-old's turn to speak. But the other suitors are barely letting him get a word in edgewise, so the 12-year-old pulls a sword and stabs one of the other suitors dead. With that, Rhaenyra has officially had enough. She's deciding to cut her tour short. She has not made a match. She's going home to King's Landing. On the boat, she's looking out on the horizon next to Criston Cole. They sure seem closer than they were a year ago. She asks Criston what he thinks her father will say about her cutting it short, about not making a match. He doesn't answer, which is really an answer in and of itself. As they're approaching King's Landing, a dragon flying fast and low knocks into the side of the boat before rising higher into the skies, speeding towards the Red Keep. It's Caraxes, the bloodworm! Daemon is here. Asshole. Daemon is returning to King's Landing for the first time since his victory over the crab feeder in the Stepstones, and while he was there, he was named the King of the Narrow Sea, and he now wears a crown of his own. You can tell Viserys is like silently hyping himself up to receive Daemon, because he has no idea what his little brother is about to do. The whole room, Viserys, Rhaenyra, Otto, Sir Harold, Alicent, everyone is holding their breath as Daemon walks in and bends the knee. He lays the crab feeder's sword at Viserys' feet, telling the Kingsguard to add it to the chair. He takes off his crown and tells Viserys that the Stepstones have been claimed in his name. Literally everyone was surprised. I wasn't. Daemon and Viserys are ride or die for each other. Viserys is like, so if you're here and the Valyrians are back in Driftmark, who's controlling the Stepstones? And Daemon's like, no one. Everyone's dead. And that's that! They hug, the room applauds. Happily ever after, show over. Let's throw a party. Later, at the party that Viserys is throwing in Daemon's honor, Rhaenyra congratulates Daemon on his victory, and they stare at each other for a little too long. Alicent
maybe Damon would like to see the new tapestries that have been acquired in his absence. And Viserys, super drunk, is like, oh yeah, Damon would really like to see those tapestries. Stupid wife. Dude, be nice to her. Viserys, when I catch you. Rhaenyra is like, I'd like to see them alone, leaving Alicent with the men, but Rhaenyra literally just walks 10 feet away to sit by herself on a bench, and Alicent does follow. Alicent's like, so the tour didn't go well, huh? And Rhaenyra is like, yeah, it sucked. And Alicent's like, I'm sure it does suck to have every knight and lord falling over themselves for your hand in marriage. Girl, it's rare that a woman gets two options, let alone dozens. It's a little romantic. Rhaenyra's like, they don't like me. They want my station and my Valyrian blood for their kids. It's not romantic to be locked away in a castle and forced to pump out heirs. And that hits home for Alicent because that's literally her entire life right now. Rhaenyra's like, oops, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. But is my dad mad? Alicent's like, I mean, yes, but I'm glad you're home. I feel like I don't have any friends at court. I'm not a person anymore. I'm just the queen. And Rhaenyra says that she missed her. Maybe they can be friends again. Cut to the courtyard, and Daemon and Rhaenyra are speaking in High Valyrian to each other. Remember, they haven't seen each other in 4 years. She's asking him why he came back. It can't have been just to piss off her dad. What do you want, Daemon? You've changed. He's cagey about the first question, but says that she's changed too. Matured. Growth. Rhaenyra complains to Daemon about being sold off for marriage, but he tells her that marriage is just political, and once she's married, she can do what she wants. Rhaenyra says maybe it's just political for you, but for women, it's a death sentence. And Daemon's like, if marriage were a death sentence for women, I would be free of my dumb wife by now. Rhaenyra's like, your wife is lucky that you haven't gotten her pregnant. And Damon's like, a child could not grow in such a hostile environment. He hates Rhea Royce. What did she do to him? But all of this connects back to Rhaenyra's trauma surrounding her mother's death, and she says that she will not be subjected to the same fate, having children until it kills her. And Daemon says you can't live your life in fear, you'll miss the best parts. Rhaenyra says she doesn't want to live in fear, just solitude, which Daemon thinks is quite sad. In the small council, they're discussing Corlys Velaryon. He has not been on the small council in some time, and there are rumors that he plans to ally himself with the Free Cities by marrying Laena to the Sea Lord of Braavos. Sea Lord, Sea Snake, Sea Smoke, I'm getting confused. Bottom line, Corlys is still upset that Viserys married Alicent instead of Laena, and now Viserys needs to smooth things over with the richest house in Westeros. And Rhaenyra is slowly realizing what this means for her. She's walking past Alicent's quarters, and you can just hear baby Aemond screaming and crying as Alicent tries to soothe him. So Rhaenyra decides to live a little. She bids Criston Cole goodnight, and disguised in boy's clothes, sneaks out through a passageway in her chambers to meet with Daemon for a night on the town. This is juxtaposed with Alicent in Viserys' chambers, washing him in his royal tub. Then she's drinking to prepare for later that night. God, poor Alicent. I'm not going to talk about it again, but just know, for all the fun Rhaenyra is about to have, it is all being intercut with Alicent and Viserys doing things together. And Viserys, watch your back. Watch your gross, infected back, because I'm coming for you. I will make you pay for what you did to her. But Rhaenyra is living it up. For the first time, people are ignoring her. She's flying under the radar. She watches a little play that the small folk put on about the birth of Aegon and which heir the chair will bear. Rhaenyra, Daemon, or Aegon. And Rhaenyra realizes in this moment she does not have the support of the small folk. They are primed to rally around a male heir, and this is one of the many hurdles she will face. I hope she takes this to heart and starts hardcore preparing. But nope, she doesn't want to think about that right now. She wants to roleplay being a street urchin, rob a vendor, and have her uncle run after her. She is Usain Bolt running through the streets, and a knight of the City Watch catches her. She's like, Sir Harwin? The hottest knight in the Seven Kingdoms? And he's like, Princess? But then he sees Daemon and decides to be chill and let her go live out her pauper's fantasy. Daemon takes her to a brothel, like the cool uncle that he is, and Rhaenyra sees a lot. Guys, there's no easy way to say this. She starts making out with her uncle. He pushes her against a wall. Clothes start coming off. But at that moment, Daemon grows a temporary conscience for the first time in his life and leaves her pants down in a brothel to find her own way home. And go home she does, right up to her chambers, past Kristen Cole, who thought she was in her room asleep. She's upset, and he's like, "Are you hurt? Should I go get the Lord Commander?" And she's like, "No, please, no." She does that thing where a girl steals a boy's hat to flirt with him, but instead of a hat, it's his knight's helmet. And all of a sudden, Rhaenyra and Kristen are alone in her chambers. And what else are they gonna do but suck face? Kristen tries to be a gentleman. He's very tortured over the fact that he took these vows to be celibate, but now this princess wants to hook up with him. At the end of the day, he is but a man. And Rhaenyra is the realm's delight. I will cut to black here. Just know that the show does not. God, she's gonna ruin his life. Good for her. Unfortunately, one of Otto's spies clocked Rhaenyra's tea at the brothel, and Otto is a snitch, so he tells Viserys that Daemon was banging his daughter at a brothel. Alicent, who spent the night with Viserys, hears all of this. Viserys is like, "Well, you were lied to. Have whoever told you this lie brought to me so I can pluck out their eyes." Otto is like, "Dude, multiple people saw her." And Viserys is like, "So you're having my daughter followed? You want her reputation destroyed, so your grandson can be king, is that it? You're not as smart as you think you are, Otto. Get out of my chambers." Yeah, Otto girlbossed a little too close to the sun with this one. Cut to Rhaenyra's chambers. In the morning, Kristen Cole comes in, and Rhaenyra's like all giggly, like, "Come here." And Kristen Cole is like, "You've been summoned by the queen." In the courtyard, Alicent demands to know where Rhaenyra was last night, because she just heard from her dad that Rhaenyra was having sex with her uncle in a brothel. And Rhaenyra, Oscar-nominated actress, says, "What a vile accusation! My queen, my sister! I would never! Daemon never touched me. I swear this to you on the memory of my mother." And with that, Alicent believes her. Rhaenyra is sort of telling the truth, but she's leaving a lot out, on purpose. Viserys summons a very hungover Daemon to the throne room to question him about these allegations. He doesn't even try to deny it. He insinuates that it did happen. He's rolling around on the floor. Viserys is kicking him, saying that Daemon has ruined her, and who will marry her now? Daemon will. He'll take her as his second wife and return House Targaryen to its former glory. Viserys is like, "I have spent my whole life defending you, and still you're lusting after my throne and my daughter. Go back to your dumb wife in the Vale. For good, I banish thee." Viserys, you already tried this and it didn't work the first time. Whatever. Viserys and Alicent are discussing this, and Alicent goes to bat for Rhaenyra. She says that Daemon must be lying because Rhaenyra would never lie to her. When Viserys and Rhaenyra finally do talk, she says the same thing. Her maidenhood is intact. Viserys says, "Girl, the truth doesn't matter. It matters what people believe. I gave you the chance to pick a match and you failed, so it's my turn. You'll marry Sir Laenor, and you will shut up and smile about it if you want to be queen." Rhaenyra says, "Fine, I'll marry Sir Laenor, but Otto Hightower has got to go. He wants to usurp me. He will do anything to make that happen." And since compromise is the spice of life, Viserys does that. He summons Otto, tells him that he knows Alicent was a distraction sent by him when Emma died. He knows how self-interested Otto has been this whole time. Otto's judgment is compromised, hand of the king no longer. The last scene of the episode, Maester Mellos brings Rhaenyra a birth control tonic sent by her father. What a ride! Episode 5 is the last episode with Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra and Emily Carey as Alicent, and what a way for them to go out. This episode rocks. The episode opens with... What's the episode called? Episode 5 is called We Light the Way, and it opens with Daemon's dumb wife, Rhea Royce, riding alone in the Vale. She should not have done that, because Daemon appears and kills her with a rock. R.I.P. Rhea Royce, you actually seemed really cool during your 2 minutes of screen time. Meanwhile, Otto is getting booted out of King's Landing, back to Old Town from whence he came. Alicent meets him at the gates, and she's terrified to be left in King's Landing alone. Otto is like, "If you didn't want me to leave, you shouldn't have vouched for Rhaenyra." Alicent is like, "None of this would have happened if you hadn't tried so hard to install Aegon as heir." And Otto's had enough. He's like, "Girl, you need to listen up. The king is going to die. It could be months, it could be years. He will not live to old age. He will die. And if Rhaenyra becomes queen, the realm will not accept her. The only way she will be able to secure her claim is to kill all of your children. Is not your friend, she is your enemy. It is her or your son. So if you want your children to survive, you need to start preparing Aegon for the throne. Alicent is sobbing, and you're again just reminded of how young she is, and now she is completely alone. Otto is right though, Viserys is sick. He's seasick on their voyage to Driftmark, he's just constantly ill, and he will continue to decline as the season goes on. There's no hope for this man, he's not getting better. Alone in King's Landing, while the Targaryens are at Driftmark, Alicent begins a tentative friendship with Larys Strong, Lionel Strong's other son. So it's Lionel, then his two kids, Harwin and Larys. Speaking of which, Lionel Strong is now the new Hand of the King. But Larys says that him and Alicent can be friends, especially since Rhaenyra has been so unwell lately. Alicent's like, unwell? She's not unwell. And Larys is like, well, on the same night that your father was dismissed, Viserys had the Grand Maester personally bring a tea to her chambers. I just figured it must have been really serious if the Grand Maester himself went to her chambers on the order of the king. Rhaenyra, you don't know it, but you have just made an enemy out of Alicent. She now knows that you used the memory of your dead mother to lie to her face. Once the Targaryens arrive at Driftmark, Corlys is petty and refuses to greet them outside his castle. He makes Viserys and Lionel come to his throne room. Rhaenys is excited to see her cousin Viserys, and she notices too that he's not doing too hot. Corlys said it's a shame we're not meeting under better circumstances, given that Daemon's wife, Rhea Royce, just died. And this is how Viserys learns that Rhea Royce is dead, thrown from her horse in a horrible hunting accident. Viserys doesn't really care though, to be honest. He's come to propose a marriage between Laenor and Rhaenyra. Corlys is like, sure, very excited. Thank you, my king. I just have a few questions. How will succession be handled? Viserys is like, why do people keep asking me this? I'm not joking. Rhaenyra is my heir. She and Sir Laenor's firstborn, male or female, will inherit the Iron Throne after her. Corlys says, cool, cool, cool. And I assume that those children would take their father's last name and be Velaryons. Viserys is like, not so fast. The Targaryen dynasty is not gonna die with Rhaenyra. The children can be Velaryons, but when they take the throne, they will do so under the Targaryen name and banner. Capiche? This is a good enough solution for Corlys, so he accepts. Rhaenys is a little more nervous because A, it would make Laenor a target for everyone who doesn't want to see Rhaenyra become queen, and B, she knows her son, how should I say this, is special friends with Joffrey, his companion knight. Corlys writes off these complaints. He's like, he is young, he'll grow out of the gay, because this means his grandchild is going to be king. While the grown-ups are politicking, Laenor and Rhaenyra are walking the beach. They definitely aren't attracted to each other, but they are friends, and they make a pact to fulfill their marital duties, but to seek pleasure elsewhere. Joffrey and Laenor are super cute together. They're talking later that day, and Joffrey is just thrilled that Rhaenyra has agreed to be Laenor's beard, and he is going to journey back to King's Landing with them to be Laenor's sworn protector. Someone else is not thrilled about this, though, and it's Sir Criston Cole. On the ship back to King's Landing, Rhaenyra tells him that her and Laenor have an arrangement, so her and Criston can keep seeing each other. But Criston is like, or, just spitballing here, you could run away with me to Essos and we could get married? You tell me all the time how you hate your position. We'd be nameless and free and together forever. And Rhaenyra looks disgusted. She's like, dude, you completely misunderstood this. I complain about the duties of the crown, but I am the crown. I'm not giving that up for an idiot and a boat. And Criston is distraught. Criston is like, Princess, I betrayed my vows for you. And now you're not even going to marry me so I can stop feeling guilty about it? Slut! Rhaenyra, you don't know this, but you've just made enemy number 2 out of Sir Criston Cole. He is never going to forgive you for this. Back at King's Landing, Sir Criston Cole is summoned by Alicent. She's here to ask him if he saw and Daemon hook up, but he misunderstands and confesses to sleeping with Rhaenyra. He's like, do it, please, kill me, just make it quick. And she's like, I'll sleep on it, you can go. Girl, come on. Update on Viserys' infection. His entire left arm is decomposing and they're barely trying to stop it. Just like giving Lionel some tonics to administer to ease his pain. They're like leeching him. Viserys confesses to Lionel that he worries he will be remembered as a weak king, that he's grateful for a reign of peace, but a part of him wishes that he had been tested. And Paddy Considine is acting his ass off here. Even I felt bad for him for a second until I remembered what he did to Emma. Everyone and their mom has arrived in King's Landing for the royal wedding. The Lannister twins, whose names I definitely remember. The Hightowers, others probably. It's the welcome feast, and Alicent is noticeably late. All the Velaryons come to serve. Every single look is amazing. They're eating. Laena looks amazing. I might use this picture every single time she's mentioned in the future, even when they use a different actress, because she just looks that good. Daemon arrives fashionably late, and Viserys is clearly upset to see him, but offers him a chair at the Targaryen table anyway, before giving a speech about the triumph of uniting two houses of old Valyria, before he is interrupted by Queen Alicent. I'm telling you right now, this is the hardest she's ever going to serve. Since she got married to Viserys, she's been exclusively wearing red, the color of House Targaryen, and at this wedding feast, she shows up in the most beautiful green dress that has ever green dressed. I mean, come on. Larys remarks to his brother Harwin that when Old Town calls their banners to war, the tower beacon glows green. This is not just a fashion choice. It's a statement to everyone in that room. She may be married to a Targaryen, but her allegiance lies with House Hightower, with her family and her children, and she is willing to fight for them. And Old Town will fight for her. The music swells, it rocks. She tells Rhaenyra, "Congratulations, daughter." So yeah, they are no longer friends. But we don't have time for that. We have a party to get to. Laenor and Rhaenyra have their first dance together, and guys, it's really cute. I think everything's gonna be okay. Never mind, Rhea Royce's cousin confronts Daemon and accuses Daemon of killing her. Daemon is like, "You can't prove anything. Plus, we had no children, and Lady Rhea was the heir to Runestone, so after the wedding, I'm flying to the Eyrie and petitioning Lady Jane myself. I'll see you there, cousin." And he hops up to go dance with Laena. I would too. Joffrey and Laenor are talking, and Joffrey has clocked that Criston Cole is obsessed with Rhaenyra. It's clear that Joffrey thinks they are kindred spirits, both hooking up with royalty on the sly, and he is woefully incorrect. Joffrey sidles up to Criston Cole and is joking about how they're both side pieces, and he should not have done that, because Criston is literally so tortured over breaking his vows that he loses his shit and beats Joffrey to death in the middle of the festivities. Chaos breaks out. Laenor is beside himself. Rhaenyra is almost run over by the crowd, but who comes to save her? The strongest, hottest knight in Westeros, Sir Harwin Strong. We'll see more of you later. Now that this tragedy has struck, the festivities are over, and they just decide to get it over with and have the ceremony. Both Laenor and Rhaenyra covered in blood, the love of Laenor's life dead. Just a sad, sad wedding. The episode ends with Criston attempting to himself in the courtyard, but Alicent stops him. What a downer ending.
Episode 6 is called The Princess and the Queen, and it has a 10-year time jump from where we last left off. So let me give you some context before we jump into the plot. This is kind of like a pilot 2.0. First of all, Rhaenyra and Alicent are now being played by Emma D'Arcy and Olivia Colman, respectively. I love them. They are so good in these roles. Alicent is still married to Viserys, and they have 4 children, Aegon, Helena, Aemond, and Daeron. Daeron. We will not see Daeron until season 3 because he is being raised in Old Town. He's like squiring. Also, I have to make a real quick correction to something I said in episode 4's recap. Alicent was not holding baby Aemond in episode 4. She was holding Helena. Helena is older than Aemond. I forgot that. I'm so sorry. Rhaenyra is married to Laenor Velaryon, and before the episode begins, they have 2 children together, Jacaerys and Lucerys Velaryon. Sir Harwin Strong, I told you we'd see more of him, is now the commander of the City Watch and nothing else. That's the only reason he's important. Don't think about it. Where is Prince Daemon? Prince Daemon is across the Narrow Sea in Pentos. Put a map right here, because I don't know where that is. It's one of the free cities. He's staying there as an honored guest of the Prince of Pentos alongside Laena, his wife, and their 2 children, Baela and Rhaena. Both daughters. Daemon is a girl dad. I think that's everyone important. I hope I didn't forget anyone, but if I did, I'll get to them. It'll happen. The episode begins with Rhaenyra giving birth to her and Sir Laenor's 3rd child. Rhaenyra, despite her fear of childbirth, has now given birth successfully. 3 times to 3 sons. She's not able to take time to rest or bond with her youngest son, however, because Queen Alicent has demanded the child be brought to her as soon as it is born, and Rhaenyra is going to take him there herself to show Alicent how cruel this request is. So Laenor, Rhaenyra, and the little baby Targaryen are walking through the halls of King's Landing. Everyone at court is shocked to see her out of bed, but excited to be some of the first nobles to congratulate them. Laenor is like, why is Alicent even demanding this? I thought we were past all of this petty, childish fighting. He also makes a comment about how he's so glad that he's not a woman, and Laenor, oh, that's not. Rhaenyra is struggling to climb the steps of the Red Keep to Alicent's chambers because she literally gave birth 5 minutes ago, and Laenor insists that they turn back because this is absurd. But Rhaenyra is like, unless you're carrying me down these effing stairs, we're not turning back. Who is guarding Alicent's chambers but Mr. Criston Cole? He does not greet them warmly, just steps aside. Alicent sees them and is like, Rhaenyra, darling, you should be resting after your labors. Please sit down. Girl, don't even. Viserys comes in looking absolutely busted. When I told you that Viserys was just going to keep getting worse, I was not lying, and this is the best he's going to look in these next few episodes. But he still loves his daughter, and he is so excited to see his new grandchild. Alicent asks what his name is, and Laenor immediately says Joffrey, which is a surprise to Rhaenyra. Joffrey, if you'll remember, was Laenor's first love that got beaten to death by Criston Cole at his wedding to Rhaenyra. And Viserys is like, he has his father's nose. And you can tell Alicent is tired. Shut up! I live on a really busy street. I live in Nashville. There's music blasting constantly. And a foghorn. Is it getting quieter? And you can tell Alicent is tired because, friends, we all have eyes, and this pale, pale baby looks nothing like Laenor Velaryon. None of his sons look like him. But before the new parents leave, Alicent is like, keep trying, Sir Laenor, and you may end up getting one who looks like you. Shady. Another thing we do see in this scene, however, is the bond that Rhaenyra and Viserys have. They've only grown closer in the last decade. He loves his daughter so much, and he's so proud of her and his grandchildren, which is very cute. As Rhaenyra and Sir Laenor walk back to their chambers, Rhaenyra is like, you could have maybe consulted me before naming my child? And Laenor's like, it's our child, isn't it? I deserve to have a say in our affairs. And Rhaenyra's like, first of all, I am the only one who is bleeding, and second of all, you haven't seemed that interested in our affairs of late. And both things are true as Laenor looks behind them at the trail of blood that Rhaenyra has left in her wake. She is so cool. In their chambers are their other children, Jacaerys and Lucerys, who show Rhaenyra the dragon egg that they chose for Joffrey, and also Sir Harwin Strong. Sir Harwin Strong? Why is the commander of the City Watch in Rhaenyra's chambers with her children, who coincidentally look exactly like Sir Harwin Strong? Well, he was just escorting the lads back to their chambers. Oh, sorry. But while he's here, could he maybe possibly hold the new baby that is definitely not his child and is definitely Sir Laenor's? Oh, he's tearing up? Anyway, Sir Laenor takes Jacaerys and Lucerys back to the dragon pit to train, giving Sir Harwin and Rhaenyra a moment alone with baby Joffrey. Guys, they're really cute together. They're really in love. At the dragon pit, Jacaerys, who from now on I will be calling Jace because that name is too hard to spell and say, it's such a mouthful. Jace is training his dragon, Vermax, while Aegon, who is now like 14 probably, watches, bored out of his skull, and Aemon, who is like 10? Wait, should I guess the kids' ages? I am terrible at telling how old kids are. This should be fun, let's go. Okay, here are my guesses. I think that Aegon is 14, Helena is probably like 11, Aemond is 10, Jace is 9, and Luke is 6. Those are my final guesses. Editing, Sophia, please feel free to tell people how badly I messed up. Anyway, back to the plot. Aemond is watching Jace train his dragon and is clearly extremely jealous because Aegon has a dragon. Jace has a dragon, and even little Luke has a dragon, but Aemond does not have a dragon. But the other 3 boys tell Aemond that they have a surprise for him. They found a dragon. Aemond doesn't even really have time to get excited because he sees what they brought him. A pig with wings tied to it that they call the Pink Dread. It's cute to see Aegon, Jace, and Luke have like camaraderie and be cousins together, but I do feel bad for Aemond, who it seems like is used to being the butt of the joke. After the other boys leave, Aemond walks further into the dragon pit because he's sick of this. He is going to claim a dragon. Just kidding, one of the dragons immediately gets angry that he's there and breathes fire at him. Try again later, Aemond. He is brought by the guards to his mother, who's with Helena, who's kind of a weird child, just obsessed with her bug collection. Good for her. Alicent is like, what happened? And Helena says he did it again, meaning tried to claim a dragon. How does Helena know? She wasn't there. Weird. Alicent tells him he has to stop this, and Aemond tells her about the prank that the boys pulled on him. Alicent insists that he will have a dragon one day, and Helena interrupts, saying he'll have to close an eye. Weird. When Alicent goes to Viserys' chambers, he is working on his little special interest scale model of old Valyria. He literally could not care less, and he tells her that Aemond shouldn't have been so gullible. And Alicent is like, no, your grandsons suck. And Viserys is like, they're younger than him. Are you sure it wasn't Aegon who put them up to it? And Alicent goes in even harder, saying, no, those kids are savages. It's a wonder to me their eggs ever hatched. Viserys is like, why is that? Alicent says, you know why. And Viserys says, I'm afraid I don't. And Alicent is like, come on. Do not play with me, Viserys. 1, bastard child is a mistake. 3 is an insult to the throne, to you, to House Velaryon, to decency itself. Okay, misjudgmental. Viserys just tells her about a black horse that he had once that mated with a silver stallion and gave birth to an ordinary chestnut mare. Alicent is like, how do you know the black horse wasn't getting it on with other horses behind your back? He remains unbothered, though he clearly thinks his daughter can do no wrong, and tells Alicent to shut her mouth and not bring it up again. She does not shut her mouth, though. She complains to Criston Cole about how everyone is just pretending that those kids are not illegitimate, and it's driving her crazy. Criston is like, yeah, you're right. The princess is brazen and relentless. A spider who stings and sucks her prey dry. A spoiled see you next Tuesday. I took that word for word because it was just crazy, and the way he delivered it was even crazier. Even Alicent stops walking, like, just to stare at him. Criston, you're doing too much. Alicent tells him that she has to believe that honor and decency will prevail in the end, letting we, the audience, know that she has taken up her father's mantle as chief schemer trying to get Aegon on the throne. And Criston is one of her supporters. Cut to one of the weirdest scenes ever of Aegon standing on his windowsill, wanking it, while he looks over the walls of the Red Keep. Alicent interrupts him and is like, whose idea was this? She's not talking about the wanking it, she's talking about the pink dread prank that they played on Aemond. Aegon's like, no, it was not my idea, definitely not my idea, it was those boys that you hate, it was them. Alicent tells him that his cousins will not be his playthings forever, and as things stand, Rhaenyra will be queen after Viserys, and Jace after her. Aegon's like, so? Alicent is sick. She's like, dude, you are nearly a grown man. How can you be so stupid? If Rhaenyra ascends the throne, she might kill you so you can't challenge her. And Aegon says, well, I just won't challenge her. And Alicent grabs his face and is like, you are the challenge, Aegon. Just by living and breathing, you are the challenge. You are the rightful king. Rhaenyra knows it. The small folk know it. The realm knows it. And for a second, you can see little Alicent, alone and terrified for the lives of her children, but she puts her mask back on and tells Aegon to get dressed before leaving his chambers. Cut to Pentos, where Daemon and Laena are riding on their dragons, Caraxes and Vhagar, for the amusement of the Prince of Pentos and his court. Really for their amusement, too. Laena loves being a dragon rider, and she loves her dragon Vhagar. At dinner, the Prince of Pentos offers them a permanent residence in Pentos. He would give them the castle they're staying at, along with the surrounding properties and ports, in exchange for protection against the Triarchy, who are apparently still a problem. They've aligned themselves with Dorne, and Pentos is worried about potential threats to their sovereignty. Laena begins to politely decline, but Daemon stops her and says they will consider the offer. Later that night, Laena interrupts Daemon and Bela's High Valyrian lesson, and Laena is like, are you seriously considering staying here permanently? We would only ever be guests, staying at the pleasure of whoever is ruling Pentos, and they're using us. Daemon says, exactly, that's the point. We have a good life here, we're free of all the politics of Westeros, politics that don't even really concern us. Isn't it refreshing that the Prince of Pentos is so upfront about the transactional nature of it all? We have dragons, they have gold. It is as simple as that. Lena says they don't belong here. They are dragon riders. They are meant for greater things. Lena wants her third child, she's pregnant, to be born on Driftmark, and her daughters to be raised with the rest of their family according to their birthright. And Lena wants to die a dragon rider's death, not the death of a fat country lord. And with that, she leaves Daemon to stew. Cut to the Red Keep. The baby Targaryens and Velaryons are training with Sir Criston Cole as a busted Viserys watches with Lionel, Hand of the King. Viserys is like, wow, these boys training together will surely create a lifelong bond. Isn't that right, Lionel? And Lionel's like, that would be great. That's the hope. That's what we're trying to do. Criston is being very helpful to Alicent's kids, sparring with them, completely ignoring Rhaenyra's kids. And Sir Harwin is like, the younger boys could stand to have some of your attention, Sir Criston. And Criston fires back, you question my methods. And Harwin is like, no, I just think you should apply your methods to all your students. And Criston's like, okay. Let's do eldest son versus eldest son. Aegon, fight Jace. And Jace never had a chance. Aegon is like twice his size. He's a teenager. Jace is a child. But he still puts up a good fight. We see Criston instructing Aegon while Harwin gives advice to Jace, really painting a line in the sand as to who each knight favors. Aegon takes the upper hand, and Criston is like, Aegon, use your feet! Don't let him get up! Kick him! Criston! So Aegon kicks Jace to the ground and just starts whacking him until Harwin puts a stop to it, admonishing Criston's cruelty. Criston is like, you sure seem to care very much about the Velaryon boys. Most men would only care so much for their cousins or brothers or sons. And that's too much for Harwin. He immediately decides to beat the crap out of Criston Cole until they are forcibly separated, which I love to see a little comeuppance for Criston's hate crime last episode. But Sir Criston is really the winner here, bleeding on the ground, laughing and saying, I thought as much, because he kind of got Harwin to admit something that he really shouldn't have admitted, if not indirectly. Someone comes to get Rhaenyra because of this incident, and as she goes down to the training grounds, she hears Lionel Strong yelling at Sir Harwin, so of course she has to eavesdrop. Lionel says to Harwin that he's opened their family up to speculation about treason, an offense that would mean death for Harwin and exile for Rhaenyra and their children. Harwin says it's rumor only. And Lionel is like, dude, people have eyes. The only reason you aren't dead is because Viserys pretends to be blind. I kept my mouth shut until you assaulted a Kingsguard to defend your kid. The word he's not saying is kid. Rhaenyra knows this is bad, so she goes to talk to her husband, who is in his chambers, drunk as drunk can be, with a knight named Carl with a Q. She's like, hey, Carl with a Q, no offense, but could I speak with my husband? And Laenor's like, Rhaenyra! Carl was telling me about his adventures and the Stepstones. The Triarchy is back and better than ever now that they're allied with Dorne. And I think a few months at sea, in battle, is just what I need after all the sacrifices I've made for you here. Rhaenyra's like, are you joking? You have sacrificed nothing. I let you buy whatever you want, spend time however you want, with whoever you want. And now when we have vultures closing in on us, rumors swirling around about the parentage of our sons, you want to flee to the Stepstones to fight pirates and wink at sailors? We have to fight these accusations, put up a united front together. Laenor laughs at the word accusations because they both know what's up. He tells her the wise sailor flees the storm as it gathers. Rhaenyra's like, you're funny. Okay then, I command it. As heir to the throne, you have to stay here with me until we clean up this mess. Cut to Pentos, where Rhaena is watching her dragon eggs in the fire. It never hatched, and her mother Laena tells her that half of them never do. Baela was given an egg in her cradle that hatched, but Rhaena will have to claim one, like Laena did with Vhagar when she was 15, and her father Daemon would say the same thing. Rhaena is like, he wouldn't say that to me because he completely ignores me. Laena goes to tell Daemon that Laenor has written to tell them that Rhaenyra has given birth to another son. Whew! And Daemon is like, did he mention if this one also looks exactly like Harwin Strong? Rhaenyra, you are not as slick as you think you are. Laena tells him again that she misses her brother, and she suspects that Daemon misses his. Daemon is like, no, I don't. I just miss Westerosi wine. Laena's like, I don't believe you. If you loved Pentos like you say, you wouldn't spend all of your time cooped up in the library reading about the dragon lords of old. Daemon didn't know he was being watched so much. Laena's like, you're not sleeping. And Daemon says, maybe I would if you would get off my back. Laena's like, listen, I know I am not the wife you wanted for yourself. Don't pretend that I am. I have made peace with it. But you are not the man that I married. You're better than this. Cut to the small council, now featuring Alicent as well. Rhaenyra and Alicent seem to never agree on anything, and it's the source of most of the tension in the room. But they have to talk about the Stepstones and the Triarchy's alliance with Dorne. Remember when Daemon came back after claiming the Stepstones and was like, yeah, no one's there, everyone's dead, we're all good? They continued to leave it undefended, and Rhaenyra points out that they should have sent soldiers to hold that territory that is now under siege again. Alicent is like, we can't afford it. We have to consider the costs to our subjects. But Rhaenyra argues that the cost of war is greater. Because we didn't take care of it 10 years ago, it's a problem again. Alicent notices Viserys is on the struggle bus, so she tries to end the council meeting, but Rhaenyra says, wait, before we go, I wish to speak. Alicent, I have felt the tension between our families, and for any offense I or my sons have caused, I apologize. But we are one house, and before that we were friends. Jace will inherit the Iron Throne after me. I think we should betroth him to your daughter Helena. Ally ourselves, let them rule together. And as a gesture of goodwill, if Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, lays another clutch of eggs, I will let Aemond have his choice of them. Viserys is like, yay, that's a great idea! Alicent just points out that Rhaenyra is leaking breast milk from her dress, and then tells Rhaenyra, thank you for the offer, the king and I will consider it. You will not catch me defending Alicent often, but in this specific case, I understand her hesitancy. If Jace were ever to be outed as illegitimate, it would put her daughter at risk if she was married to him. Plus, Alicent is very uptight about duty and propriety because she played her part perfectly. She married the old king, she suffered through bearing him children, and she really holds a grudge against Rhaenyra for not having to suffer the way that she did, the way that all women in this world have to. Rhaenyra gets to have it all. The throne, the handsome husband, her knight paramour, while Alicent has to take care of a decomposing monarch. As they walk back to the chambers, Viserys tells Alicent that it's a good match, and Alicent should put aside these childish quarrels and join their families. Even though Jace and Helena are cousins, or rather, Helena is Jace's aunt, so they are already family, but I guess that isn't close enough for Targaryens. Alicent tells Viserys that the only way this marriage would happen is if Alicent is dead. So it's a no-go on that one. Lionel interrupts their conversation to resign as Hand of the King. He tells Viserys that his son Harwin has disgraced the Strong family due to his actions that morning in the training pit, and Lionel does not wish for his son's mistakes to tarnish the reputation of the crown. Viserys is like, he was kicked out of the City Watch. It's fine. I think that's punishment enough. Lionel is like, it's not. There is a shadow cast over House Strong which grows ever darker. Viserys says, so name it then, if it casts such a gloom. And Alicent says, yeah, say it. Say it, Lionel. Say it. Please say it. But Lionel won't say, so Viserys will not accept his resignation. Lionel's like, well, if you won't let me resign, will you at least let me leave to escort my son back to Harrenhal? Harwin is my heir, and it's time he assumed his duties there. I'll come back. Viserys agrees, tells him to hurry back. And Alicent is so mad that she didn't get a win just then. But she doesn't have time to be sad. She's having dinner with Larys Strong. Remember him? Lionel's other son? Alicent tells him what just happened, says that if Otto were still the Hand, that he would speak the truth to the king. And Larys is like, don't tell me with a straight face that your father would be impartial in this matter. And Alicent's like, no, but he would be partial to me. She's having a little tantrum because it seems like there is no one in King's Landing on her side. It seems Larys is on her side, though, because later that night he visits the dungeons to see some men set to be hanged in the morning. He tells them he will grant them mercy in exchange for a favor not yet revealed to the audience, and goes ahead and cuts out their tongues so they won't be able to spill about it. Someone's playing Cupcake outside my window. Cut to Lena giving birth, and it is not going well. She is bleeding, the baby won't come out. The surgeon tells Daemon that short of cutting her open, there is nothing to be done. While Daemon is thinking this over, he looks back at the birthing bed, and Lena is gone. She has used the last of her strength to go outside to Vhagar. Remember, she wants a dragon rider's death. She pleads with Vhagar. Vhagar Dracarys, Dracarys Dracarys. And the grandma dragon looks so sad and confused. Why would her rider command her own death? But Lena begs and begs until finally her dragon obeys. Daemon realizes where she is, too late. By the time he gets outside, Lena has gotten the dragon rider's death that she longs for, burnt to a crisp on the sands of Pentos. We cut to Harwin saying goodbye to Jace and Luke, and Rhaenyra saying to the boys that he'll return, but he just doesn't know when. It will be a long time. He kisses Joffrey, telling him that they will be strangers when he meets him again. Rhaenyra is trying not to cry. She clearly loves him, but they can't embrace, they can't kiss, they can't do anything. All he can do is say, "Goodbye, princess." Jace and Rhaenyra watch Harwin walk away, and Rhaenyra tells her oldest son that they can exchange letters by Raven. Won't that be fun? And Jace says, "Is Harwin strong, my father? Am I a bastard?" Rhaenyra tells him that he is a Targaryen, and that is all that matters. Rhaenyra goes to Laenor in the courtyard, who is sparring with Carl. She tells him that they are leaving. They should have left years ago. Alicent is not going to let Helaena marry Jace. Rumors are swirling about the castle, about her sons, and she is done with it. They're going to Rhaenyra's seat at Dragonstone. Laenor says that if she's gone from court, Alicent will manipulate Viserys. Rhaenyra remarks that a wise sailor flees the storm as it gathers. Laenor looks absolutely devastated until Rhaenyra says, "Laenor, bring him." Rhaenyra Targaryen, #1 ally of the Westerosi gay community. Good for her. Basically, as soon as Harwin and Lionel arrive at Harrenhal, those criminals that Larys freed, they set fire to the castle, killing almost everyone inside, including Harwin, including Lionel, dead and dead. Larys is a filthy kinslayer, and he doesn't feel bad about it at all. God, I hate him. I hate him so much. I hate his stupid little monologue that we hear over Rhaenyra arriving at Dragonstone with her children, talking about how children are a weakness. I hate that Alicent confronts him and acts shocked that they're dead. Larys said, "The queen makes a wish. What subject wouldn't strive to fulfill it? I assume you'll write to Otto, your father, now, right?" Alicent is almost in tears, like, "I didn't wish for this." And Larys is like, "I'm sure you'll reward me when the time is right." And that was episode 6. Another downer ending, and I don't think it's going to get better from here. Episode 7 is called Driftmark, and it takes place immediately after the events of episode 6, so no time jumps, no new Targaryen babies to worry about, thank God. All of our major players have gathered on Driftmark for Laena's funeral. Vaemond Velaryon, brother of Corlys Velaryon and Laena's uncle, is delivering her eulogy in High Valyrian before her casket is dropped into the sea, which is the traditional burial for House Velaryon. While he is delivering the eulogy, he is glaring daggers at Rhaenyra and her sons while talking about the importance of the purity of Valyrian blood. Remember how I said Vaemond was a hater to his core? Despite Daemon being sad, Vaemond's dig at Rhaenyra during the eulogy does get a chuckle from Daemon, because, come on, your niece is dead. There are bigger problems than your probably illegitimate nephews. After, while everyone is giving condolences and mingling, Rhaenyra finds Jace to tell him to comfort his cousins Baela and Rhaena, but Jace tells her that he has as much of a right to be sad, and they should be at Harrenhal mourning Sir Harwin. Rhaenyra is like, "Dude, shut up. You are going to blow our cover. The Valyrians are our family. The Strongs are not. Are we clear?" We see a ton of little vignettes at this funeral after party. It makes up like the first 30% of the episode, so I will describe all of the important ones for you now. Corlys pulls Luke aside and tells him that one day he will be Lord of Driftmark because his older brother is heir to the throne, and Luke says he doesn't ever want that to happen because if he is the Lord of Driftmark, that means everyone is dead. Aegon complains to Aemond that he doesn't want to marry their sister Helaena. It seems that betrothal has been officially decided. Aegon goes and chases down a servant to get drunk and flirt with her. Alicent and Sir Criston are staring daggers at Rhaenyra, and Viserys is definitely noticing the tension. Aemond walks up to Jace looking like he wants to say something, but both of these boys have been raised to distrust each other, so they both say nothing. Jace walks over to Baela and holds her hand to comfort her before Rhaenys approaches to comfort her granddaughters and glare at Jace. It's not his fault that Harwin Strong is his dad. Corlys sees Laenor standing in the ocean's shallows at the bottom of the cliff, just completely falling apart, so he walks up to Carl with a cue and tells him to retrieve his patron. Kind of making a scene because, shouldn't his wife be the one to go and comfort him? Even Vaemond is like, "Dude, we are at your daughter's funeral. Please do not talk to your son's lover right this very second." Viserys musters up the courage to approach Daemon, who looks completely adrift, and offers his condolences before telling him that he should return home to King's Landing with his daughters. Daemon says that Pentos is my home, with pure venom in his voice. Viserys tries to tell him that they should put their differences behind them, that they're brothers, and Daemon has a place at court if he needs anything. Daemon says he needs nothing, before walking away down to the beach. Rhaenyra tells her sons to go to bed before following Daemon, and Viserys walks up to Alicent and says, "I'm going to bed, Emma," which is going to make her spiral. Otto, who is here and is Hand of the King once more, finds Aegon drunk and passed out and orders him to bed. Later that night, Rhaenys and Corlys are in their chambers arguing. Rhaenys is pissed at Daemon for not bringing Laena home to Westeros to give birth. Corlys tells her she's blaming Daemon for an act of the gods, and Rhaenys fires back that maybe it was an act of the gods punishing her and Corlys for their insatiable pride. Corlys says, "Sorry, I'm just trying to get our family on the throne after the Great Council stole a crown that belonged to you." Rhaenys says, "Please, on the day of my daughter's funeral, can you stop pretending for 1 second that you're doing this for me and not your own ambition? Especially when that ambition is costing our children. I want Driftmark to pass to Baela. We can announce it while everyone is here, say that it's to honor Laena's memory. Laenor will be king consort, so it's not like we're passing over him." Corlys doesn't want to do this because it would cast even more suspicion onto Rhaenyra and Laenor's sons, but Rhaenys is like, "Don't you want Driftmark to pass to someone who is a true Velaryon? It's just us here, and we both know Laenor's sons are not his blood." But Corlys tells her that history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names, before leaving her to her grief. Cut to the beach, Daemon and Rhaenyra are walking the shoreline together, catching up for the first time in a decade. Rhaenyra is worried that Laenor has completely fallen apart. Everyone at court knows their marriage is not a love match, but he's probably going to stop putting in the bare minimum effort to maintain appearances. It's here we learn that Rhaenyra and Laenor did try to conceive children, but it didn't work. There was no love, no joy, so she found that elsewhere. She regrets letting Harwin return to Harrenhal, knowing that it's this cursed place. And Daemon is like, the curse is just a story, one that Otto and Alicent would gladly exploit. But Rhaenyra doesn't believe that Alicent is capable of cold-blooded murder, though Daemon says everyone is capable of depravity. Rhaenyra says, "I believe that you specifically are capable of it." And Daemon's like, "Are you accusing me of something? Spit it out." And she's like, "Yes, you abandoned me." And she's 100% right. Remember, the last time they saw each other on screen was in the brothel where they made out, and he left her there. Daemon was like, "I'm trying to spare you. You were a child." And Rhaenyra's like, "Yeah, and look at how my life turned out without you." Daemon says, "If you think your life turned out bad, you must really pity me for mine then." And Rhaenyra says, "I barely know anything about your life because you left me." Did you love Laena? Daemon didn't love her, at least not in that way, but they were happy, and unlike Rhaenyra, he's at least granted permission to mourn the mother of his children. I guess this conversation really gets both of them going, so they decide to suck face about it. They do more, but I'm gonna do another cut to black. Honestly, that's basically what the show does, too. This scene is so poorly lit, I was squinting at my television. I know it's night outside, but it's also a TV show, a visual medium. I want to see what's going on. Whatever. Aemond has decided that it is the perfect time to go dragon shopping. He sneaks down to the beach where Vhagar sleeps and just claims her. The largest, oldest dragon in Westeros, the Game of Thrones version of a nuclear bomb, in the hands of a 10-year-old boy. I choose to believe that Vhagar was so sad about Laenor's death that she just didn't care enough to stop him. That's almost definitely not the case, but I don't like adult Aemond, and I don't like how he treats the grandma dragon, so that is what I have decided to believe. The sequence of the first flight, though, is really cool, very stressful. The first time I watched it, I was certain that we were about to watch him fall and turn into a Targaryen pancake. After his victory flight around Driftmark, he lands and is greeted by Jace, Luke, Baela, and Rhaena. Baela and Rhaena are furious that he stole their mother's dragon. Rhaena says that dragon should have been hers. But Aemond says, "Well, your mom is dead, and it's my dragon now, so maybe Jace and Luke can find you a pig to ride. It would suit you." Aemond gets a dragon and immediately says, "People without dragons are disappointing losers who don't deserve rights, actually." This does not go over well with either of the girls, who both start punching him. After Aemond punches back and says he's gonna feed them to his dragon, Jace and Luke step in, all of them beating the crap out of Aemond, who manages to subdue all of them, grabbing Luke by the throat with one hand and a large rock in the other. He tells Luke that he will die screaming like his father did. When Luke yells that his father is alive, Aemond turns to Jace and says he doesn't know, does he? Lord Strong. Bastards. This infuriates Jace, who pulls out a knife. He misses, though, and drops it and falls, and Aemond lifts that rock, I assume to murder his nephew, I think. step-nephew? I wholeheartedly believed that he was going to kill his step-nephew Jace. Jace throws sand in his face and Luke picks up the knife and charges at Aemon, slicing out his eye. I'm actually not sure if the eye comes out, but the result is the same. He loses an eye. Sir Harold finds them clearly disturbed at how violent these kids have become towards each other, and he brings Aemon to the Great Hall to be treated by the maesters, and a crowd is forming. Viserys is furious at the Kingsguard for not protecting his blood, but Sir Criston points out that they're not really expecting princes to be attacking each other. Alicent slaps Aegon for not being there for his brother, and the commotion has everyone gathering. Corlys and Rhaenys, all the children, the Kingsguard, Otto, Daemon, and Rhaenyra, who entered together through the front door, everyone except Sir Laenor. Guys, this is my favorite scene in the entire first season, maybe the entire show. Please get ready. Viserys demands to know what happened, and Alicent and Rhaenyra both say the other's kid is guilty. Luke maimed Aemon's eye. Aemond was the one attacking Luke. Jace tried to kill Aemond. Aemond accused Jace and Luke of being bastards. Rhaenyra says this vile, false accusation against an heir to the throne is treason, and Aemond must be questioned to learn who spread this slanderous rumor. Alicent is like, my kid lost an eye, and that's what you're worried about? But Viserys demands that Aemond tell him. You can tell that Viserys really does not care about any of his children with Alicent, at least not in the way he cares for Rhaenyra and her children, because Aegon, Helaena, and Aemond are just some kids he had with Alicent. But Rhaenyra? That's his daughter. And those are his grandchildren. Alicent is trying to shield her son, saying it was just a schoolyard insult. If only Sir Laenor was here. She says he might have something to say on the matter. But he's not, because he's probably entertaining his squires. Gloves off, Alicent. Oh my god. Criston Cole laughs at that, and Sir Harold is like, anyway, Aemond admits that he heard it from Aegon. Viserys gets close to Aegon's face, and again, this is not sweet dad Viserys. This is King Viserys demanding to know where he heard this rumor. Remember, if he admits that it came from his mother, the queen, this will be bad for Rhaenyra and even worse for Alicent. Aegon stumbles over his words, just saying that we know, father. Everyone knows. Just look at them. Viserys is disgusted. He scolds them, demands that they stop the infighting, reminds them that they are family, and he, their king, demands they reconcile. And with that, he turns away, ready to go back to bed. Alicent is like, are you joking? Sorries are not going to bring back my son's eye. And Viserys is like, girl, what do you want me to do about it? Alicent said there's a debt to be paid. I want one of her son's eyes in return. Viserys tells her to stop, but she is crying, pleading with Viserys to defend their son, his blood. Again, he refuses, telling her not to let her anger cloud her judgment. And that is the final straw for Alicent. Remember, she held her tongue. She had his kids. She gave him 2 sons. She's taking care of his decomposing body all the time while he treated her like And when the time comes for him to defend their children, he can't even do that. She says if the king will not seek justice, the queen will. Sir Criston, bring me the eye of Lucerys Velaryon. He can even pick which one he loses. Sir Criston is like, and Viserys says, no, I forbid it. Alicent is screaming at this point, saying Sir Criston is sworn to her, and that's true, but he's sworn to her as her protector. He's obedient to the king. Viserys says this matter is finished. Alicent, let it go. Everyone here, just know if I hear any of you questioning the parentage of Rhaenyra's children, I'll remove your tongue. Rhaenyra thanks her father, and Alicent comes completely unglued. Viserys is wearing Aegon the Conqueror's dagger at his waist, and Alicent pulls it out and comes at Rhaenyra, who's shielding her children. The 2 women struggle, the children are screaming, no one knows what to do. The knights just form a circle around them, no one daring to move except Daemon, but Sir Criston Cole keeps him from intervening. Rhaenyra is like, girl, you go too far! Alicent's like, I am not the one going too far. I do everything that is expected of me while you do exactly as you please. Viserys is ordering her to let Rhaenyra go, but she ignores him. Rhaenyra took her child's eye, and even that she feels entitled to. Rhaenyra says, God, you must be exhausted carrying that giant chip on your shoulder. Now everybody knows what a crazy you are. When Alicent screams and breaks away, she slices Rhaenyra's forearm, and it's not fatal, but it's not a small wound. Alicent is in shock, dropping the dagger, and all the witnesses are horrified. No one knows what to say now. It's Aemond who finally breaks the silence. He tells Alicent, his mother, not to mourn him, because as far as Aemond is concerned, an eye for a dragon is a fair trade. Now everyone knows the 10-year-old claimed Vhagar. The next morning, Otto visits Alicent, and she's like, just say it. Tell me what I did was inappropriate for a queen. Tell me I disgraced myself, that I guaranteed that Viserys will forever favor Rhaenyra. Otto says, well, yes, all those things are true, but I didn't know you had a backbone, let alone one this impressive. We play an ugly game, and this is the first time I've seen you act like you could win it. You know that Rhaenyra is reckless, she can never be queen. Now go fake apologize to Viserys, he'll forgive you because he has to. Aemond just gave us a huge advantage getting Vhagar. He was right, it was worth his eye. If we work together, we will succeed at getting your son on the Iron Throne. So they are maximizing their joint slay, and when I say slay, I mean destructive scheming. Alicent is all in now. Cut to Sir Laenor entering Rhaenyra's chambers in the morning while the maesters are stitching her up. Laenor is like, dude, I am sorry, I should have been here. Which is true, but he was going through a lot. His sister just died. Rhaenyra tells him what Aemond called their sons, and Laenor blames himself. He really tried with Rhaenyra. He just couldn't. And he does love their sons, but maybe not enough. Rhaenyra is like, I wanted to have your kids. Sir Harwin was not plan A. And Laenor says he regrets the gods making him the way they did. But Rhaenyra doesn't. He's a good man with a good heart. He's treated her well, and they're still friends all these years later. Laenor tells her that even though they've allowed each other to explore happiness elsewhere, he's not going to go with Qarl with a Q when he returns to fighting in the Stepstones. He is committing to the bit with Rhaenyra and promises to stand by her side and take an active role in raising their sons. She deserves a husband and a partner. Meanwhile, the gears in Rhaenyra's head are turning with tumultuous energy. God, we are finally leaving Driftmark, or at least Alicent and Viserys are. Alicent tries to apologize in the carriage on their way to the boat, but he's having a fever spell and is like, just don't bring it up again. So she doesn't really get the chance. Professional avoidant Viserys. On the boat, Larys approaches Alicent to tell her that what happened was tragic, and if it's an eye she seeks, he can get it for her. Alicent says, thank you, no thank you, but your devotion does not go unnoticed. I will hit you up when I need you. God, I hate him. I don't think Alicent even likes him either. She's just using him. Rhaenyra watches Vhagar flying after the ship from the castle, and Daemon joins her. She's in such a fabulous coat here. The costumes are gorgeous. They talk about how fire is a prison, but the sea is an escape. This is very explicit foreshadowing to something that will happen 15 minutes from now. Emma D'Arcy proceeds to deliver this long monologue in High Valyrian, very impressive, saying that she needs her uncle. If they were married, her claim would not be as easy to challenge. Daemon is like, even if I wanted to, we couldn't unless Laenor died. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, I know. And they do that thing where Rhaenyra explains a plan via voiceover while simultaneously showing the plan in execution. They leave it ambiguous whether she's actually going to kill Laenor, but this sequence isn't that long, so I'm not going to pretend like maybe they're actually going to kill him, because they're not. Basically, her and Daemon are going to give Qarl with a Q and Sir Laenor a whole bunch of gold, have them fake his death, and get on a boat to the far east so they can be together. Sir Laenor and Qarl even stage this argument and a sword fight that ends with Laenor landing in a fireplace so no one notices it's not his body. From Rhaenyra's perspective, this will help her twofold. It will allow her to marry Daemon and make people believe she's capable of great lengths to secure her claim. Only downside is it is going to make Rhaenys and Corlys think she covertly ordered the death of their son. We don't have to worry about that right now, though, because we have a wedding! The episode ends with Rhaenyra and Daemon getting married on Dragonstone, old Valyrian style. Rhaenyra looks beautiful. Baela and Rhaena are there, so now the cousins are also step-siblings, I guess? I don't know. Rhaenyra kisses her uncle-husband. I'm sure they will live happily ever after. Actually, sorry, the episode for real ends with the reveal that Laenor is alive, head shaved, and on a canoe with Sir Qarl with a Q, escaping east. It's not a reveal to you because I told you 10 seconds ago. But anyway, on to episode 8. Episode 8 is called Lord of the Tides, and we're doing another time jump. This time it is 6 years later. 6 years since Laena's funeral, 6 years since Aemond claimed Vhagar and got his eye cut out by Lucerys, and 6 years since Rhaenyra Rhaenyra married Daemon after the death of Laenor Velaryon. The episode opens with Rhaenys on Driftmark asking a maester if her husband is going to live. Corlys has spent the last 6 years fighting in the Stepstones, and she has just received word that his life hangs in the balance after a particularly violent ambush that left him severely injured. His ship is sailing back to Driftmark, but he might not be alive when it gets back. So Rhaenys, Baela, and Vaemond are discussing what this means for the seat of Driftmark, because if Corlys dies, the lordship will pass to Lucerys, Corlys's grandson and Rhaenyra's second son. Vaemond does not want that to happen because he knows those kids are illegitimate. But Rhaenys says it's what Corlys wanted. Vaemond says, I do not care, the seat of Driftmark is mine by blood. I want your support, but I don't need it. Rhaenys says, dude, be careful, the king will have your tongue for this. But Vaemond fires back that the king does not sit on the Iron Throne these days. The queen does. And we all know who that queen is and where her loyalties lie. Now we are moving over to Dragonstone, and we get to see a glimpse of Rhaenyra's family life there, Daemon collecting dragon eggs laid by Syrax, Jace practicing High Valyrian, and little Joffrey playing with his nanny. Daemon brings a message to Rhaenyra. It's from Baela, and she's letting Rhaenyra know about Vaemon's plans to petition the queen for the rights to Driftmark, and Rhaenys has also flown to King's Landing for this hearing. Rhaenyra and Daemon aren't sure who Rhaenys is planning to support, because on one hand she has taken Baela as a ward, but on the other hand she thinks Rhaenyra had her son Laenor killed so she could marry Daemon. In order to make sure that Luke's claim isn't called into question, and in turn Jace and Rhaenyra's respective claims, Rhaenyra has no choice but to take the family back to King's Landing. In King's Landing, things have been better. In Rhaenyra's absence, Alicent and the Greens have replaced a lot of Targaryen sigils and symbols with the Faith of the Seven, pretty much just to be petty. Whatever, Alicent. Rhaenyra and Daemon go visit King Viserys in his chambers, and he looks worse than he ever has. Bedridden, delirious, face bandaged to cover up his decomposition. He doesn't even recognize his daughter at first, but he is so excited to see her and Daemon when he does. She introduces him to her two sons with Daemon, Aegon and Viserys, and then pleads with her father for his support with the whole Driftmark succession issue. Viserys is confused and doesn't even really understand what she's asking, saying that Alicent and Otto handle all court business now. So looks like Viserys is in no state to help his daughter. The small council is meeting to discuss the issue of Driftmark succession. It should be simple because Corlys's intention was for Lucerys to inherit the seat after him, but Tyland remarks that Lucerys is just a boy and has never commanded a fleet of ships. Which Lionel Beesbury, yes, he is still here, says that his experience is irrelevant to his claim. We're nobles. Alicent decides to hear out all of the claims tomorrow before deciding. As Alicent leaves the small council, Sir Eric, a member of the Queen's Guard, not to be confused with Sir Auric, his identical twin brother, approaches. He tells Alicent there has been an incident in Prince Aegon's chambers. They bring the incident in question to Alicent, a young maid named Diana. This scene is very sad. Trigger warning for descriptions of non-consensual activities. Aegon has forced himself upon this maid, and she is beside herself. She knows that confessing this to the queen could mean her being exiled or worse. Alicent hugs her, a genuine hug, and tells her that she believes her and it's not Diana's fault. She also tells her that not everyone will believe Diana's story, so she cannot tell anyone else. This is partially true, so she is sort of looking out for Diana in this moment, but she is mostly running damage control for her monstrous son. Alicent's lady-in-waiting gives Diana a contraceptive tea and some money for her troubles. Oh my god. The whole scene is very dark and a very sad look at the way most women have to move in this world. Alicent goes to Aegon to unleash hell upon him. She is furious. Her son, the one person she's been trying to install on the throne, is a terrible person. He doesn't feel any remorse for what he did. Alicent slaps him, saying that he is no son of hers, and Aegon retorts back that he does everything that she asks, and it's never enough for her or his father Viserys. And this is true, but I don't feel bad for him at all. He can die. Alicent finally goes to see Rhaenyra. Remember the last time they saw each other, Alicent stabbed her in the arm. This conversation is tense. Daemon and Rhaenyra question Alicent on why Viserys is bedbound and being prescribed fantasy opium daily, but Alicent tells her that she hasn't been here. Viserys is in so much pain without it. Alicent reaffirms that she is the one that will be hearing Rhaenyra and Vaemon's petitions tomorrow and exits. Busy woman Alicent bounces right to the next scene. She's immediately in a meeting with Otto and Vaemond, who has arrived in King's Landing. Otto is like, "Do you really want a kid leading the largest fleet in Westeros?" Vaemond tells her in so many words that if she rules in his favor, he will be in her debt. Then we get a scene of Rhaena reuniting with her grandmother Rhaenys before Rhaenyra interrupts and asks to speak to Rhaenys alone. These names are so similar. Rhaenyra has figured out that Rhaenys isn't here to support Lucerys or Vaemon's claim. She is here to argue in her own favor. Rhaenys wants control of Driftmark and to pass it to Baela after her death. Rhaenyra says, "Don't do this to my son, please." And Rhaenys says, "It wouldn't be worse than what you did to mine." Rhaenyra pleads with Rhaenys, saying she loved Laenor and did not order his death. She swears it. If it were me, maybe this would be a good time to tell Rhaenys that her son is not dead at all, just living his best gay life in Essos, but I do understand why Rhaenyra can't say anything. Rhaenyra says, "Listen, if you back Lucerys' claim, I will betroth my sons to your daughters. Baela will be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, wife of Jacaerys, and Rhaena will rule Driftmark with Luke." But Rhaenys sees through this. It's not a generous offer, it's a desperate one. Even if Rhaenys supports her, tomorrow the Hightowers will land their first blow in the fight against Rhaenyra. So Rhaenys has to look out for herself. Y'all, the walls are closing in on Rhaenyra. She is feeling like all hope is lost. In a last-ditch effort, she visits her father in his chambers, and he is semi-lucid. He calls her his only child, which again just hammers home how little of a he gives about the 3 children he has with Alicent. She asks him if he believes in Aegon's dream, the Song of Ice and Fire, because if you do, why would you divide the realm and name me heir? If it's because you truly think the burden is mine to bear, then defend me. Please, defend my children. This is my last chance. She is desperate. She is crying at his bedside, but he doesn't respond, just falls back to sleep. In the morning, while the maesters tend to Viserys, he tells Otto he wants to have dinner with his entire family tonight, all his children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews together. He then refuses the fantasy opium that Otto offers him. He wants to keep his mind clear, but for what? It's finally time to hear the petitions of Vaemond and Lucerys. Everyone is gathered in the throne room to hear each party plead their case. Vaemond is winning. He is implying that Rhaenyra's kids are not true Velaryons. He is playing dirty. He's being a hater to his core. But it's time for Rhaenyra to speak. Unless, wait, who is that? Coming into the throne room. It's Viserys? Guys, this is the only time I'll be excited to see him. The first time I watched this scene, I cried. He is a mess, mask covering half his face, hunched over his cane, barely alive, and he shows up for his daughter. The music swells. Alicent and Otto are like, "Oh, no, this is not good," because it's not good for them or Vaemond. Viserys hobbles up to the Iron Throne, breathing heavy. He struggles so much that he drops his crown, and who is there to pick it up but Daemon, his brother, who loves him so much. Ride or die. He places the crown on Viserys' head and helps him up the steps to sit on the Iron Throne. The relationship these two brothers have might be my favorite thing about Season 1. They fight, they become estranged, their relationship is so complicated, but when it comes down to it, they would do anything for each other. Now that Viserys is here, the dynamic has completely shifted. He's like, "Guys, I'm confused. Why are we petitioning over a matter of settled succession? If Corlys's wishes have changed, Princess Rhaenys is surely the only one able to offer any insight." So Rhaenys steps forward. What's she gonna do? She is going to certify that Corlys wished for Driftmark to pass through Sir Laenor to his trueborn son, Lucerys Velaryon. Hell yes! Rhaenys is coming through for Rhaenyra and Team Black. Viserys says, "Cool, so the matter is settled. Again, I hereby reaffirm Lucerys' position as heir to Driftmark." This is too much for Vaemond. He talks back to the king. He says, "You broke centuries of tradition to name your daughter as heir, and now you tell me who should inherit the seat of my house? No, I will not allow it." Viserys says, "Don't forget yourself. You can't allow anything. This is a monarchy, babes." And Vaemond fully crashes out. He points at Lucerys and says that he is no true Velaryon and he is no nephew of mine. You may run your house as you see fit, but not mine. I will not see the Velaryon line ended on account of this bastard. Her children are bastards and she is a whore. Viserys wants his tongue for that, but Daemon just cuts off his head instead. Problem solved. Goodbye, Vaemond. I told you your hateration would be your downfall. The activities of the day are too much for Viserys, who collapses back into his throne. Alicent goes to him, tells him he must do more fantasy opium, but Viserys won't do it. He says he cannot cloud his mind. He has to set things right. And while I appreciate the sentiment, it is unfortunately too late for that. This whole show is just a series of mistakes made by Viserys that become harder and harder to undo. Cut to dinner! Remember Viserys wanted supper with his entire family? Yeah, it's as awkward as you think it's going to be. No one is speaking to each other. Viserys is like, this is such a good day. My grandsons are marrying their cousins. Lucerys is the future Lord of the Tides, and we're all together. He gives one last speech to his family, telling them how sad it makes him that they have grown so distant from each other. He tells them the crown cannot stand strong if the house of the dragon remains divided. If you can't reconcile for the sake of the kingdom, please do it for me, because Lord knows I will not be around for much longer. This speech seems to kind of halfway work, because Rhaenyra stands to toast to Alicent for standing by Viserys' side, saying that she has Rhaenyra's gratitude and apology. Alicent says, thank you, we're both mothers who love our children, and we have more in common than we sometimes allow. I raise my cup to you, Rhaenyra. You will make a fine queen. Jace toasts to Aegon and Aemond, saying he has fond memories of growing up together and hopes they can be friends and allies as adults. Helena toasts to Baela and Rhaena, who will be married soon. She says marriage isn't so bad. Remember, she's married to her brother husband, Aegon. And mostly he just ignores you, except for when he's drunk. Get him again, Helena. The music starts playing, so Jace asks Helena for a dance, reminding us that it could have been them who got married and things would have worked out so much better. Everyone is smiling, everyone is laughing, and it seems like just for a moment, everything might work out. But then Viserys gets tired and the guards carry him back to his chamber and the facade of family love slowly fades. The moment is extra ruined by Aemond, who decides to toast to his nephews, all handsome, wise, strong boys. Alicent is like, dude, shut up. But Aemond says, what? It's just a compliment. Are you not 3 strong boys? And a physical fight immediately breaks out between Aemond, Aegon, Jace, and Luke. God, it was good for like 2 minutes. Everyone goes to bed mad. Rhaenyra tells Alicent she plans to take her family back to Dragonstone, but Alicent says, girl, you just got here. Don't go. So Rhaenyra says she'll see her children home, and then she will return on Dragonback, which seems to make Alicent genuinely happy. Later that night, Viserys is in his chambers and Alicent visits him. He's delirious and thinks it's Rhaenyra. He says, you wanted to know if I believe it, the Song of Ice and Fire. Aegon, it's true what he saw in the north, the prince that was promised. The prince to unite the realm. It's you. You are the one. You must do this. Alicent says she understands. No, she does not. And then he dies. Not to spoil the next episode, but Alicent is going to misinterpret these deathbed ramblings to an absolutely catastrophic degree, and all we can do is watch. Episode 9 is called The Green Council, and it's focused on the scheming in King's Landing and the Hightower branch of the Targaryen family. A servant discovers Viserys, and the telephone game begins. This servant tells Alicent's handmaid Talia, who lights a candle in the window of Viserys' bedroom, seemingly to signal someone in King's Landing about Viserys' death before she goes to tell Alicent. I'll spoil it. She's signaling to Mysaria she's a spy for Mysaria. To give Alicent some credit, which I hate to do, she seems at least a little sad that her husband is dead. She immediately gets dressed and goes to her father Otto to tell him the news and to tell him that when she saw Viserys last, he told her he wanted Aegon to be king. Girl, no he did not. I know you think he did. He didn't. Doesn't matter. The Green Council has been called into session. Otto brings the council up to speed. The king is dead, and his dying wish was for Aegon to be king. Tywin Lannister says, thank God, we have his blessing, and now we can proceed with our meticulously crafted evil plans. They start discussing how to remove Daemon's loyalists from the City Watch and the Kingsguard, which noble houses will support Aegon, etc. Everyone is on the same page, except for Alicent, Sir Harold, and Beesbury, who are all hella confused. Alicent says, hold up, have you all been planning to install my son on the throne without telling me? And they're like, girl, no, we just didn't want you to have to get your hands dirty as queen. We obviously trust you. Lyman Beesbury, on the other hand, is sick. He stands and speaks up, calling all of them out. He has known Viserys the longest out of everyone here, and he refutes the idea that Viserys would have changed his mind on his deathbed with only Alicent as a witness. He goes even further, implying that one of them may have had a hand in the king's death. Sir Criston Cole, the voice of reason, screams at him to sit down and forces Beesbury back into his chair. He's actually so aggressive with it that Beesbury's head smacks the table and it kills him. This is the first casualty of the Dance of the Dragons. Shock, awe, horror. Sir Harold pulls his sword on Criston, telling him to remove his cloak on account of the murder, and Criston pulls his own sword out. Alicent says, please, everyone put your swords away. Maester Orwyle wants Beesbury's body to be removed, and I get it, he's sitting right next to him, but Otto is like, no. No one is leaving this chamber until our business is done. As they plot around her, Alicent is slowly realizing what this means for Rhaenyra. Otto says her and her family will just be imprisoned until they publicly swear fealty to Aegon. But Alicent knows that will never happen. Rhaenyra and Daemon will never bend the knee. So that means the entire Green Council is cool with killing her and all of her children. Alicent finally voices her objections to this. The king, her husband, would not have wanted his daughter killed. Otto's like, do you have any other ideas, girl? I thought not. Sit down. Sir Harold, take your knights to Dragonstone. Be quick and clean about it. But instead, Sir Harold removes his cloak, saying that as commander of the Kingsguard, he will only listen to the king. So until there is one, he is not involving himself with this nonsense. And with that, he unlocks the door and leaves. Green Council over. But now we have a bigger issue. Alicent and Otto go to Aegon's rooms and Helena's chambers, but he isn't there. Where is the future king? This is a huge problem. Alicent tries to tell Helena that her father is dead, but Helena interrupts, saying there's a beast beneath the boards. If you haven't picked up on this, Helena is a prophet. She prophesizes. Otto finds Sir Eric, who's Aegon's protector, but he doesn't know where Aegon is either. He thinks Aegon snuck off into the city, so Otto tells Eric to find him immediately, bring his brother Sir Auric with him, and remove the white Kingsguard cloaks because no one can know that they're looking for Aegon, including the Queen. When they find Aegon, bring him to Otto alone, not Alicent. But Sir Criston heard this, so he tells Alicent, and Alicent tells him to go find Aegon and bring him to her, not Otto. Aemon says he knows where to look, so he is going to go with Sir Criston. Now the wheels are turning, too fast to stop. Rhaenys, who is still in King's Landing, has woken to find her door locked from the outside, and the castle servants are all being detained in the cellars to keep word from getting out. Otto brings the nobles that are at court to the throne room to essentially force their hand and make them swear allegiance to Aegon. Most of them do, but some of them refuse because they stand on business. They're not oath breakers. Otto just has them arrested and taken away. Through the streets, we've got two teams, Criston and Aemond, and Eric and Auric, both searching for Aegon. Who will find them first? While Aemond and Criston are searching, Aemond is telling Criston that Aegon is dumb and he sucks, and Aemond should be king instead. Eric and Auric go to these child fighting pits where Aegon spends a lot of time and has fathered many illegitimate children who now compete in these fighting rings. Eric is disgusted with Aegon, and he does not believe that Aegon is the rightful king. Auric is just following orders. They are approached by a girl who is employed by the White Worm Mysaria. Mysaria has detained Aegon and will release him in exchange for an audience with Otto. I don't think I mentioned this when Mysaria first appeared, but I don't like her. No hate to the actress, I'm so sorry, but I don't think she does a good job. I'm so sorry, I'm annoyed when she's on screen. Back at the Red Keep, Larys has clocked one of the noble lords trying to escape and has him delivered to Otto, who puts him in the dungeon. Otto thanks Larys and says he's noticed Larys spending a lot of time with the Queen. Larys says, well, for the right price, all that time spent could be for your benefit. Larys is never not scheming. After crying over Viserys' body, Alicent goes to visit Rhaenys, who is pretty upset and would like to know why she's been locked in her chambers. Alicent lays it all out for her. The king is dead, Aegon will be king, and she wants Rhaenys and her husband's support. The Velaryons have been loyal to Rhaenyra in the past, but to no end. Laena is dead, Laenor's children are not his, Corlys is still in critical condition. Alicent tries to flatter Rhaenys a little, admitting to her that she should have been queen. Viserys did not have whatever sauce makes a good monarch, but it's too late to change that now. Women cannot rule, but we can guide men that do away from violence and towards peace. If Rhaenys wants Driftmark, Alicent will give it to her. Rhaenys only needs to support Aegon's claim. Rhaenys gives Alicent credit for being smarter than she thought, but admonishes her for spending her whole life in service of men. Her father, her husband, her son. Has Alicent never pictured herself on the Iron Throne? This Alicent up, her whole life summed up in a few unimpressive sentences, so she leaves Rhaenys to make her own decision. Meanwhile, Miss Arya has secured her audience with Otto. She will give him Aegon in exchange for two things. One, an end to the child fighting pits in King's Landing, and two, a whole bunch of gold. Good for her, I guess. I personally don't care. Otto agrees, so Eric and Auric are able to recover Aegon, but Sir Criston Cole and Aemond are there and threaten them to release Aegon to them. Aegon, who breaks free of the Erics, zooms away. He does not want this. It's everyone around him who is forcing the crown on him. Cue epic sword fight between Criston and Auric. Cue Eric vanishing into the shadows of King's Landing because he has decided this is simply not his business. Cue Aemond tackling Aegon, who begs him to let him sail away. You can tell Aemond is considering it, but Criston Cole is there to whisk Aegon away back to Alicent. She has won the Aegon chase. Alicent goes to tell her father that she has Aegon, and Otto tries to convince her that they are still on the same team, working towards the same goals. But he doesn't know Alicent like I know Alicent. Once she feels she's been betrayed, it is near impossible to get back into her good graces. She sees now they were never on the same team. She was just raised in his image to do what he told her to do, to want what he told her to want. And now he wants to murder Rhaenyra, and she refuses to go along with it. He's like, I understand why a woman would be squeamish with bloodshed. She's like, not wanting to murder my husband's daughter is not weakness, you sick, twisted man. I won the Aegon chase, so we're doing this my way. Listen up. We're going to send terms of surrender to Rhaenyra, fair terms that she can reasonably accept. She can leave Westeros or stay on Dragonstone. We're going to name Criston Cole as commander of the Kingsguard, and Aegon's coronation will happen tomorrow morning. All the pores of King's Landing will be invited so it can be as public as possible. Otto simply tells her that she looks a lot like her mother in certain lights, and she storms out back to her chambers where Larys Strong is waiting for her. She's like, dude, it's late. Please leave. But he has important information to share. Doesn't she want to know how Otto found Aegon first? But Larys is not going to give up this information freely. Y'all, this is so weird. To get him to spill his information, she takes off her shoes so he can peep at her royal feet. I'm not going to mention it again, but just know that as he's spilling this information, he's perving and Alicent is letting it happen. He tells her there are spies all over the Red Keep serving one master. Otto knows this but doesn't do anything about it because it's sometimes useful to him. We know this master is Miss Arya the White Worm, but Larys doesn't mention her by name in this scene. Larys reveals that one of the spies is Alicent's handmaid, Talia. And if Alicent wishes for him to take out the spy network, he can do that. Rhaenys is stewing in her chambers that night, and who comes to break her out? Sir Eric! He is back! His sense of honor cannot let this treachery stand. He is there to guide her through the castle to freedom. As he's leading her through the streets of King's Landing, the City Watch are corralling the small folk to the dragon pit for the coronation, and her and Eric are separated. Bummer. On the bright side, the coronation is happening in the dragon pit, and Rhaenys is going to take this opportunity to sneak down to where the dragons are and get her dragon Maelys, but hold that thought. On the carriage ride to the dragon pit, Aegon looks like a kid who's been wrestled into church clothes for Easter Sunday, and Alicent is like, dude, you could at least look grateful. Do you know how hard this was to pull off? But Aegon doesn't care. He knows his father never wanted this. Alicent tries to tell him that that's not true, the whole deathbed confession thing, but Aegon just laughs because he knows better. His father didn't like him. He never meant for Aegon to be king. That's when Alicent pulls out the Conqueror's dagger, the one Viserys kept with him. Seeing the dagger, having it given to him, makes Aegon think twice. He asks her if she is serious, and she swears it's what Viserys wanted. She also takes this moment to tell him not to listen to his grandfather when Otto tells him to kill Rhaenyra. Aegon doesn't respond to this and just asks his mother if she loves him. Alicent smiles and says, you imbecile. Because you can say a lot of things about Season 1 Alicent, but she loves her children, even her terrible, terrible son. Now we get the coronation scene. It's very cool. Otto speaks to the small folk to tell them Viserys is dead, and he named Aegon his successor. All the small folk applaud because they all hate women. Just kidding, but not really. Aegon is crowned with the Conqueror's crown, holding the Conqueror's sword. Fanfare, excitement, applause. The actor playing Aegon here gives a fantastic performance. It's awesome. The music swells. It looks like this is going to go off without a hitch. Long live King Aegon II. Oh no, small hitch. Rhaenys bursts through the floor with her dragon Meleys, killing an untold amount of small folk, whatever. She approaches the dais. Is Rhaenys going to end the war before it starts? Is she going to take out the Greens today to prevent the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands? Oh, she's just gonna stare Aegon down on her dragon before flying away? Okay, Rhaenys, I could have sworn you were smarter than that. This does not happen in the book, and I can't understand why the writers made this choice other than the fact that it looks sick as hell. It really makes no sense, especially because the episode ends there. Episode 10, the season finale, is called The Black Queen. Let's get into it. Last episode took place entirely in King's Landing with the Greens, and this episode takes place pretty much entirely on Dragonstone with the Blacks. This episode is also a whole lot of telephone, so just bear with me as I tell you about all the characters getting up to speed. The episode starts with this very sweet moment between Lucerys and Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is pregnant with her sixth child, and Lucerys is fretting because Corlys is still in critical condition, and if he dies, Luke does not feel ready to be Lord of Driftmark. He's literally 14 and gets seasick whenever he's on a boat, but Rhaenyra reminds him that destiny is not something you choose, it is something that is given to you. When Rhaenyra was named heir, she wasn't ready to be queen, but it was her duty, and she had to earn her inheritance, just like Luke will earn his. He remarks that he's not perfect like his mom, and Rhaenyra kisses him and tells him she is far from perfect. Rhaenyra, you self-aware queen. She promises to look after Luke until he's ready to be Lord of the Tides. They're interrupted because Rhaenys has finally arrived on Dragonstone and she needs to speak with Rhaenyra and Daemon immediately. Rhaenys has to break a lot of news to them. Viserys, Daemon's brother and Rhaenyra's father, is dead, and Aegon, her brother, has usurped the throne from her. Daemon's like, so my brother is dead, probably killed by Alicent, and you had the chance to burn them all and didn't take it? That's what I'm saying, Daemon. But Rhaenys says this isn't her war to start. Girl, what are you talking about? You are going to fight in the war. Whatever. Rhaenys tells Rhaenyra that the Greens are coming for her and her children. The stress of this news causes Rhaenyra to go into an early labor, so while Rhaenyra goes to deal with that, Daemon is making plans to fortify the island, and Rhaenys fetches Jace and Luke so they can go see their mother so she can tell them what's going on. Jace is ready to spring into action, and he's like, don't worry, I'll make sure Daemon doesn't do anything stupid. Before he leaves, Rhaenyra reminds Jace that his authority relies on her own claim, so make sure nothing is done until Rhaenyra commands it. Daemon's council, well, really Rhaenyra's council, but Daemon's council tells him that Corlys is alive and no longer in critical condition. He's set sail on his ship, but they're not sure where he's going or where his loyalties lie. Daemon orders ravens to be sent to all their nearest allies, and while he's plotting, everyone can hear Rhaenyra yelling for Daemon, and one of the councilmen is like, do you want to go to your wife? And he's like, nah, I'm gonna fly to the Riverlands to confirm Lord Tully's support. Jace interrupts and says he'll do no such thing because Rhaenyra, the rightful queen, has decreed no action will be taken while she's in labor. Daemon looks super annoyed at this, but says, thank God you're here, Jace. We need you to patrol the skies on your dragon Vermax. Jace is like, dude, did you not hear me? And Daemon ignores him, telling the councilmen to carry out his orders, and the councilmen listen to Daemon. Which I have to say makes no sense. You've already thrown your lot in with Rhaenyra. Why defer to a man now? Whatever. Daemon leaves the council and tells Jace to come with him. He's going to show him the true meaning of loyalty. Daemon goes to question the two Kingsguard that are on Dragonstone and to give them a choice. Re-swear their oath to the new queen or choose to die an honorable death. But he warns them if they lie and betray Rhaenyra later, they will die screaming, in pain. and his dragon Caraxes is there to really bring that point home. Meanwhile, as Rhaenyra is giving birth and screaming, it's intercut with her dragon Syrax also screeching in pain. I'm pretty sure this is to illustrate the magical bond between dragon and rider, and also to foreshadow what Rhaenyra is going to give birth to. Her daughter Visenya never takes a breath, and she is born twisted and premature with dragon scales. Rhaenyra has to mourn both her father and her newborn child in one fell swoop. Bummer. They hold a small funeral for the child, and during it, Sir Eric approaches. He's come from King's Landing to swear fealty to Rhaenyra, and he's brought her the crown that her father Viserys wore. Rhaenyra's theme plays as Daemon places the crown on her head and kneels before her, and everyone else does the same. God, this coronation is so sad. Anyway, we have a cool table to gather around. This is the table that Aegon the Conqueror used before his invasion of Westeros, and it's a map of the Seven Kingdoms. It's where Rhaenyra holds her first council as queen, and God, they have a lot to talk about. They need to figure out how many soldiers they have, which noble houses support their claim, and what they're going to do about the Greens. They have less soldiers than the Greens, but what they do have are dragons, 13 to be exact, while the Greens only have 4. Rhaenyra points out that half of those dragons are without riders, and none of them have been to war. Daemon thinks if they play their cards right, though, they can win this war within the month, but Rhaenyra is a lot more wary. And she'll have to be because the Greens have sent an envoy to Dragonstone. They are here. It's Otto, yay! Said no one ever. Daemon meets him at the bridge entrance, and Otto tells him he's been sent by the Dowager Queen Alicent, mother of King Aegon II, to deliver a message to Rhaenyra. Where is she? Cue Rhaenyra flying in on her scary-ass dragon Syrax. She lands on the other side of the bridge, blocking the Greens' exit. Very drama. She reminds Otto that Aegon is not king, she is the queen, and all of them are traitors to the realm. Otto ignores her completely to say what he came here to say. King Aegon, in his wisdom and desire for peace, has proposed terms. Acknowledge Aegon as the true king, swear loyalty to him, and Aegon will let Rhaenyra have Dragonstone as her seat, and it will pass to Jace upon her death. Luke will be named heir to Driftmark, and all her sons with Daemon will be given places of honor and influence at court. Also, Aegon will pardon any knight or lord that was loyal to her claim. Rhaenyra doesn't want to hear this, but Otto has one last trick up his sleeve. He gives a piece of parchment to Rhaenyra, and when she unfolds it, she sees it's the page that Rhaenyra tore out of the book for Alicent when they were children. Alicent kept it all these years, a totally platonic thing to do. Otto says Alicent remembers the love they used to have for each other. They don't have to go to war. The realm can have peace. Daemon has heard enough and he's ready to kill Otto, but Rhaenyra says no, they came in peace and will leave in peace. Rhaenyra will deliver her answer to King's Landing tomorrow. Back in the war room, Daemon is pissed. They have the most dragons, they can win this. The lords counseling Rhaenyra ask her if she's really considering the Greens' terms, and she says she is. It's her duty as queen to protect the realm, not throw it into war. But Daemon yells that the Greens have already declared war, so what's she going to do about it? And there it is. Rhaenyra refuses to be pushed around by her husband. She tells everyone to clear the room. It's time to settle this. She asks him, "Are you excited for war? Because it seems like you are." And he's like, "I'm not excited, I'm angry. Are you not angry? They stole your birthright, and as queen, it's your duty to crush rebellion." She says her oath goes beyond their personal ambitions. Remember, Daemon, the Song of Ice and Fire. Aegon's dream. Viserys told me when he named me heir, so he must have told you. Viserys actually did not tell Daemon this. And it's either that revelation or just the rage that's been building up inside of him that compels him to grab Rhaenyra by the throat, choking her, forcing her to listen to him. He says Viserys was obsessed with dreams and prophecy, anything to make his purposeless reign have any kind of meaning. But dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did. When he lets go of Rhaenyra, she is shocked. A laugh nearly escapes her as she realizes Viserys never told Aegon about Aegon's dream. The acrobatics my brain has to do to like these characters after they do heinous things is truly Olympic worthy. I still like Daemon as a character after this moment. He sucks and I would never want to meet him in real life, but if I start hating these characters based on my 21st century morals, soon I'm gonna hate everybody, and that's just not a fun way to watch a show. I need to root for someone. Speaking of which, Corlys is awake. I was rooting for him. Rhaenys is by his bedside and she immediately tears into him for abandoning her for 6 years right after both their children died. He just says, "I'm sorry. I lost everything. And Rhaenys says, we lost everything. What is this eye? By the way, your brother Vaemond is dead too. He stood in front of the king and called Rhaenyra's kids bastards, and Daemon beheaded him. This is surely a shock to Corlys' system right after recovering from near death, but even I was flabbergasted at what comes out of his mouth next. Are you ready? He tells Rhaenys that she was right. All of his plans and ambitions were for nothing. As for the issue at hand, they should declare for no one, retire to Driftmark with their grandkids, and live a quiet life. Rhaenys is like, are you stupid? Your grandkids are heirs to the throne, and your other grandkids are betrothed to them. None of them will be safe while Aegon is king. Corlys says they can't support Rhaenyra. The woman is complicit in Laenor's death. That girl destroys everything she touches. But Rhaenys tells him that that girl is the only thing holding the realm together right now. Everyone on Rhaenyra's council is urging her to go to war, and Rhaenyra is the only one who's saying that they should think about it first. Cut to the council, everyone is arguing until Corlys and Rhaenys enter. Rhaenyra and Corlys go back and forth for a moment, but when it comes down to it, he affirms House Velaryon's support for Rhaenyra's claim. And because he won the battle in the Stepstones, again, the Blacks control the Narrow Sea and all of the shipping ports therein. They can cut off supplies to King's Landing, surround them, and force their surrender. Yay! Rhaenyra has decided that if war starts, it will not be by her hand. She wants to know who her allies are first. If they're going to surround King's Landing, they'll need support of Winterfell, the Eyrie, and Storm's End, so they'll have to send ravens to those houses. It's Jace who suggests sending dragons instead because they are faster and more convincing, to put it mildly. Jace will go to the Eyrie and Winterfell, and Luke is going to Storm's End to appeal to Lord Boros Baratheon and remind him of the oath that his father swore to her. Before the princes leave, Rhaenyra reminds them to be safe. This is a diplomatic mission. They are messengers, not warriors. She makes them both swear on the Bible not to engage in any fighting. I mean, it's not the Christian Bible, but it's the Game of Thrones Bible. It's the Bible. She tells Luke that Lord Boros is a proud man who will be honored to host a prince and his dragon, and with that, she sends them on their way. God, I am so stressed. Luke lands in Storm's End here to deliver his message, but Vhagar is already parked outside. Oh no, Luke, turn around. He doesn't turn around. He goes to seek an audience with Lord Boros, and Aemond is already parked beside the throne. Oh no, Luke, turn around. He doesn't turn around. He delivers the message to Lord Boros, who apparently can't read. He has to have a maester read it to him, and Lord Boros is insulted. King Aegon's message at least came with an offer of marriage in exchange for his support, but Luke comes empty-handed. Lord Boros says that Luke can tell Rhaenyra that the Lord of Storm's End is not a dog at her beck and call. Go home, little prince. When Luke turns to leave, Aemond stops him. Did Luke really think he could fly about wherever, trying to undermine Aegon's claim? Luke refuses to engage, saying he came as a messenger. He is not going to fight Aemond. Aemond says, oh, no, I don't want to fight you. I want you to put out your eye. I was going to bring it to my mother as a gift. Luke is like, are you crazy? No. And Aemond starts running at him, screaming at him to give him his eye. But Lord Boros demands that they stop, not in his hall, in front of his salad. Say what you want about Lord Boros, he will at least honor Luke's intention of peace and has him escorted back to his dragon. Outside, it's pouring rain as Luke mounts Arax and sees that Vhagar is gone. I don't know how Aemond was that fast. Luke takes off on Arax towards Dragonstone, but unfortunately, he will never make it there. Vhagar catches up to him, and Aemond taunts him in the skies. He's not trying to kill him, just scare him, but unfortunately, the grandma war dragon doesn't know the difference, and she's decided that it's snack time. Aemond is yelling, Vhagar, no, but it's too late. One chomp, and what is left of Luke and Arax fall into the sea. Goodbye, Luke. Aemond, you have just started a war. In the last scene of the episode, Daemon walks into the war room to deliver news of Luke's death. Rhaenyra is facing away from the camera, looking into the fireplace, and when she finally turns around, you can see it in her eyes. She is about to unleash hell. And that was season 1. Oh my god, talk about excellent television. I'd like to reflect back on the season, maybe give some superlatives out. I've obviously watched Haley Whipjack's Once Upon a Time recaps, and I'm not trying to steal her thunder, so I'm gonna do some different rankings and awards. Best actor/actress. This is my own personal Emmys. Who was the best performance in the entirety of season 1? I have to give it to Paddy Considine. He was amazing. This man made me hate him, love him, cry for him, cheer for him. Every single human emotion it is possible to feel, I felt for Viserys this season. No, I haven't forgiven him for what he did to Emma, but his performance is incredible. Favorite episode goes to Driftmark. I especially love the scene where Rhaenyra and Alicent are fighting and Alicent has the dagger. It's so good. You already knew this. The drama, the struggle, Alicent flying off the handle, it's all mwah. Worst character. This is just so I can talk about Massaria. I don't like her. I don't like Massaria. I don't think the actress is doing a good job. The accent is weird to me. It is very distracting. All of the lines they have written for her feel very stilted. In a cast that is performing at such a high level, she sticks out so much. And last, who is Sophia's favorite dragon of the season? Drumroll, please. It's gotta be Caraxes, the bloodworm. I love how weird and freaky he looks, and I love how he is just as weird as Daemon. They are truly meant for each other. I love the bloodworm. Anyway, now I have to go work on season 2. I have like a month before season 3 comes out, and I'd like to have the season 2 recap out at least 2 weeks before so we can all get ready together. I will try my hardest. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Sophia Lynch, and I have music out under that name on all streaming platforms, including this very YouTube channel. So please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of these because I would like to keep making them. See you next time.